Hello again, and welcome to the Master's Voice. I am Celestial, and you are welcome to this channel. To old and new subscribers alike, you're very welcome. I have no announcements for this message. I'm going to cover a prophecy that the Lord gave me on October the 14th, 2025. Today is Friday, October the 17th, 2025. So I received this prophecy early hours of October 14th, 2025. But before I give this prophetic word, I'm just going to share what the Lord has been speaking to my heart just before I put the camera on. Now, it's my habit to write down the prophecy. If it was up to me, I would leave these prophecies for quite a while, just to give myself time to really delve into them, to kind of absorb them, you might say, to embody them, so that when I come to deliver them after prayer, the Holy Spirit really is able to encapsulate the message and bring it out in a way that everybody will understand. But while I was doing this one tonight, the Lord just added a little bit more in, but he told me that it can still keep the date, the original date, because it's part of the original prophecy. So the date of this prophecy is October the 14th, 2025. And what God was adding to my heart is, he was saying to me, go far out. So it's something like seeing a circle, and then seeing another circle, and then seeing another circle, like that, concentric circles. And he was telling me, you must tell them the truth. You must tell them the truth. Go far out. And he said, go as far out as you are led, and tell them that that there's going to be a great slaughter here in America, due to, there's nothing actually written down here about what he said. There's going to be a great slaughter in America due to the war that is going to break out between the American people and the government. And when I say government, I don't know, there's always been this understanding in people's minds that I constantly have to deal with. I constantly have to chip away at that mind. And the reason that I keep having to do that is because people in America are obsessed with political parties, and it's so detrimental to them being an audience that can understand end times things. And that is such a tragedy, because just imagine you're holding an hourglass that represents your life. Everybody has their life, and everybody's life is represented by an hourglass, and your time is in the top, and nobody knows how much time they have. Only Jesus Christ knows how much time they have. But you have your time in the top, and then your time is running down every single day. Even if it's a child of 5 years old, you don't know how much time that child has in the top, and that time is running out. And imagine the tragedy of being a person who, because of how you were raised, because of your own personal choice plays a large part of it. But imagine being the kind of person who, because of your society, because of your environment, because of also just this arrogance that is inside the soul, of the people who live here, and that you can't hear beyond your socialization. Socialization basically means the way you've come up. If you come up in a house with grandparents who did things a certain way, then they raised your parents that way, and then your parents will raise you that way. And then also you'll be affected by the general environment outside, whether you live in a good area, bad area, whether you grew up with poverty, non-poverty, what kind of education did you have? You know, how exposed are you to the outside world? And so we have a society here that, even though it is so famous, America is so famous around the world, Americans are not exposed to the global society. It's almost like living in a fishbowl, where you know that you're the fish and you're happy being that famous fish. And then everybody looks into the fishbowl. Everybody thinks the fishbowl is so amazing. But then the thing is that the fishbowl is not the universe. The fishbowl is not the world. The majority of Americans are not traveled. The majority of Americans do not, even if they are traveled, they don't have an interest in the outside world. It's such an insular existence to be an American. Literally the only sound in your ears, unless Jesus breaks in there somehow and helps you, is me, 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 me. That's all that most people can hear. And so imagine living in a society, how surreal it is for some of us, living in a society where all people can hear is me, me, me. This is what I think. This is what I feel. And someone is trying to break you out of that so desperately because you're not aware that you are holding the hourglass of your life in your hand. And the time in that hourglass is running out. And God is saying certain things about you and how much time you have left. And you are so stuck on Democrats and Republicans that you can die in that nonsense. It's so jarring for a person when God breaks you out of the fishbowl and begins to talk to you in terms that I can only call yonder. Yonder is beyond these borders. Yonder is even beyond other countries' borders. Yonder is heaven talk, hell talk. When the creator of the universe is talking to somebody like that, and then they have to come down from the mountain of all that and come down to sit in front of a camera, knowing that they're addressing an audience that even if that audience tried, the majority of them are caught in the chokehold of their politics. That even when you want to start the introduction to a prophecy, you are risking what you say flying over their heads, because the minute the words come out of your mouth, Republican hands are going to grab it and say, she must be talking about the Democrats. And Democrat hands are going to grab it and say, this is what the Republicans do. We knew it. We knew it. And it's so exhausting to have to see death all the time, to have to talk about death all the time, and then to know that the people you're telling about the death, that affects them. This doesn't affect people in Laos, what I'm about to say. It affects you out there. But then the people in Laos will get it, and then you'll listen with your broken partisan ear and distort the entire prophecy and miss it, thereby wasting even more of the sand in your glass. I'll put the end before the beginning. A war is coming here to America in which the Lord says that the devil will really chew flesh. And the picture that I was seeing is just when a dog gets a rabbit, unfortunately. You know when your dog can smell a rabbit in the park, but this is the kind of dog that is trained to go all the way. This is not the kind of dog that you can just say, Chester, Chester, and then Chester will smell that rabbit, but he's trained, and your voice is more important than his primal instincts. And so if you call Chester 2-3 times, he will be so reluctant because you're interrupting his instincts, but because you have trained him, he'll come back. Satan is not a dog that anybody can train. And I think that doesn't need to be said, because Satan doesn't live in heaven anymore. And if Satan could not be trained by the person who trained me, then there's no place around that trainer for a person like Satan. And so when God is saying that the devil will greatly, greatly tear flesh here, that is the picture that I just kind of had a quick flash of a dog that had gotten a rabbit and was basically nose deep in the guts of the rabbit, like had ripped the thing open, regardless of any voice crying out in the background, Chester, Chester. There's a kind of dog that you call him Chester for your comfort. You don't call him Chester because that's his real name. That guy is just answering to the name Chester so that you feel comfortable. He knows that his name is Destroyer. And the day a situation ever arises where some foolish woman in the neighborhood leaves her child unattended for 2 seconds as the gate is open, and not Chester gets out, for he is not Chester, what that dog will do to that child, you can go to court, you can sue, you can do all the things after the fact, but that baby is going to lose fundamental parts, or even the baby's life, proving that even for babies, the hourglass can run out. And Yah was telling me, after I'd gone through this whole prophecy, after I'd gone through the whole thing, checked the notes, tried to understand, and certain parts I just don't know anything about, so I'm going to go online and be able to give you a better understanding when we get to those parts, because certain parts of these prophecies, yes, Yah can tell me about them. The phraseology will be exact because he knows everything. But then in order to be able to lay it out to you properly, I also then have to have some kind of an understanding, because sometimes God just talks as if I know everything he knows. And that is not the case. Sometimes he gives me the understanding. But then I've always said that the reason that God gave us a brain is he desperately was hoping that we would use it and develop it, because having a brain is a gift. There's some people born with brains that are hampered, brains that don't work properly. And so if you have one and you don't even bother to use it, to do research, to learn more than you know, then that's outright laziness. And I'm not a lazy person. So the end of the prophecy, this is the part that God just added just now. The end of the prophecy is that the devil is going to be allowed to eat here like a predator. And God said that what the devil will do in America, please listen to me, will be so devastating that he said the other nations are going to turn their eyes away from here. Just a moment, please. The other nations, Yah said, will turn their eyes. He said that other countries will turn their eyes away from what happens in America, because it will be so raw and it will be so terrible and it will be so devastating that other nations will turn their eyes away from here and they will not acknowledge what happens here in the United States. And he was saying to me, Celestial, when people in other countries were suffering, it was almost like a spell fell on the other countries, and they absolutely did not look at or acknowledge in any way that suffering. And then for some reason, mostly African conflicts just started bubbling up in my mind. And the first one was what happened in Rwanda between the Hutus and the Tutsis, how one tribe literally became overcome by this demonic, destroying thing that came over them, and they slaughtered 1 million people in just a matter of weeks. And the whole international community, America first, that has technology to be able to find presidents hiding in caves. America has personalized drone technology. America can send a drone to kill one man by simply programming a little bit of his DNA into the drone so that the drone becomes like a shark or a Rottweiler that only has the scent of that man and can kill just that man out of his whole country. Nations with the power to intervene did not intervene, but they basically sat as if nothing was happening. They sat and they watched people slaughter each other in Liberia and Sierra Leone. God was telling me that there's decades old conflicts like the Sudan and like Somalia. And he said the nations basically averted their eyes and they acted as if they couldn't see. Now, obviously, when it comes to conflicts in certain parts of the world, Those who have power and the means to exert power do not do so because they have internal reasons for wanting those conflicts, not only to continue, but they foment the conflicts by supplying arms and supplying weaponry, sometimes to one side, sometimes to both sides, because it's very much in the interest of Western people if other people who are not Western in descent destroy themselves. It's a kind of more for us mentality, and also we can exploit the chaos, and we can go in, and when there's no president, then we can go to the rebels that are controlling the gold, and we can go to the rebels that are controlling the cobalt, and we can have personalized agreements that are not subject to the laws of the nation, because there is no nation at that time, because it's a failed state. So there's a wealth and there's a wealth and an overwhelming body of work exposing how Western powers actually love it when there are times of instability in other regions of the world where they don't have to lose people, where they don't have to suffer the loss of infrastructure. But God was telling me, in the same way that people turn their eyes from Rwanda, they turn their eyes from the DRC that is suffering right now. The people in the Congo are still suffering after more than 25 to 30 years, I think it is, of what everybody knows is a Western-backed conflict. Yah was telling me that that is going to happen here. He said that what is going to happen here in America, off the back of the thing that we are seeing now, that very foolish people are celebrating because they think, just like I explained, that this is the use of Western power against Black people, Native people, Hispanic people. So it's always enjoyable to a certain section of the population, not exhaustively, but the majority of them, they thrill to things like that. And they never think that it will hold them. They never think that it will touch them. They never think that it will affect them. For some reason, there's this disease in the Western mentality that thinks that the use of power is only for who we hate. And who we hate is those who don't look like us. But that's not going to be fully the case. And America is going to have a conflict that is so destructive. If God gives the idea or the image of a dog nose deep, bloody snout, bloody nose in the steaming guts of a rabbit, if you have to look at the US government and look at the US people, and you only had one bet, who would you bet on being the dog? And who would you bet on being the rabbit in God's scenario? So he said, the same way that it seems as if a spell, and he knows that there's no spell. He knows that it's deliberate choice, that the United Nations, that NATO nations, that the UK, Australia, America, Canada, he knows that it's for very good reason. It's for studied reasons that they look away when destruction arises in the parts of the world that they're happy to rob for resources, but then they don't actually see any value in the lives that live on top of and that have ownership of those resources. So he says the same way that it seemed like a spell falls on the world when people are suffering in Gaza, and for like 75 years, Western powers have listened to America's absolute drivel about Israel having a right to defend itself, and watched her raise her proud hand to veto. You watch the American delegate veto every vote and then begin to play on their cell phone or scribble, because these are the masters of the world. But he says the same spell that falls on the nations and they don't look at conflicts in certain parts of the world. He told me, Celestial, that same spell is going to fall upon the eyes of the world. And when they see what is done here in the United States, the international community as a whole is going to avert its eyes as atrocious human rights abuses. And you know that I'm not one to just use the term human rights abuses, because I find it extremely vague and there's a fatigue attached to that word if people don't hear actual atrocities, they tend to zone out because they've overheard it. The United Nations has made the term so flat. It's like Coca-Cola that stayed open on the counter for 3 days without being sealed. There's no fizz to that word, but he was just basically saying that the kind of devastating acts that will be done here, the rest of the world is going to turn their eyes and they're not going to have any interest at all. And, you know, for my part, I thank the Lord in saying this to me, because just 24 hours ago, right? So October the 16th, I did call my most beloved and I had a conversation with her. And I know that I'm the one with the prophecies. I know that I am the one that prophesies and that has the dreams. But I called her and I said, Mom, they're going to kill us here and nobody is doing anything. Now, why would I say that? When have I ever sat here and prophesied? And then as the American Civil War was just about to break out, the NATO region noticed what was happening here and stood up and quickly convened a council and intervened. When have I ever said that? I've never said that, because that's not how this goes. It's not going to happen. I watched 3 prophecies today. 3 of them, the despot leaders of America, the wolves are coming. The first one about how they will be authorized to take lethal shots and everything. That was over a month ago. I keep saying it was 2 weeks ago. It was actually 5 weeks ago, something like that. And a third one. And so I managed to get in 3 prophecies by putting them on fast speed just to refresh. And I was so surprised to find out how much material I've covered. And most of it keeps referring to this civil conflict between the people and the government, the insurgency that is already starting to rise. And so I've never said here that anyone would intervene, anyone would stand up, anyone would help us. But it's just a moment of humanity, because I was saying, Mom, there's schools here in America. There's books here in America. There's vast education, or at least that's what people claim. That there's all this here, Mommy. And at the same time, we are sitting here as the exact playbook of the Nazis unfolds. Who said that? I was saying that since COVID. I was saying since COVID that America is going to become a Nazi society, where they're going to ask us for papers. I shared the dream during the COVID years of how I saw myself being asked for papers between New York City and New Jersey. And people were angry at me and saying, what kind of a messed up dream is that? Because, of course, I have a dream factory where I just go and create the messed up kind, and then I come on the internet to share it for kicks. But it's the stunning reality of the thing that I said, they mean to kill us here. They mean to actually kill us here. Us who are Black, us who are Hispanic, us who are Native. And eventually it will trickle down to Meredith and Dave. I said, Mama, they mean to kill us here. And I said, on top of that, the people in Europe are educated. I said, the people in Europe saw Hitler. I said, they saw him. They saw how he rose. They saw all his tactics. They saw how he neutralized his opponents. They saw how he quickly went from that civil government that used to be managed by, I think, a chancellor in tandem with Congress. I said they saw how quickly that man did a pyramid structure of government with himself at the top. He did a pyramid structure with all power centralized in himself. He made a joke of Congress. He made a joke of the courts. And he became this powerful cultish figure in next to no time. He accomplished this in a matter of just under a year. which is exactly what the president is doing now. And I kept saying, they know better. They know better. But when they see him in public, they laugh. When they see him in public, they kowtow. When they see him in public, they're deferential. And I said, do you think their heads are okay in Germany, Mom? Do you think that their heads are okay in France, in Italy, in Portugal? Do you think that they're okay? Especially Austria, Hungary, France, the ones who actually became occupied territory. I said, because what would be going on in their brains? I said, in my soul, I know that they can see what is happening here. I just don't understand why they would sit and let it happen. It's just a moment of, I guess, humanity, because I'm in no way unaligned with God's prophecies. For me, these prophecies are my life's work. This is what I'm going to be remembered for. Nothing else that I've ever done in this life, nothing else that I've ever touched or tried or hoped for or accomplished will stand. It is what we do for Christ that will stand. And I'm so honored that he would choose me to be the one to bring out the grave clothes, because we all knew that revelation had to come at some point. And all she said to me was, well, I won't go too much into that, but she just asked me at some point, who had the prophecies? Who prophesied these things? And I was just quiet. We're going to have a very bad war here, and nobody's coming to help. They're going to allow it. And the Lord said to me that the reason that it's going to be allowed is because in Revelation 13, it says that the beast was allowed to conquer the tribes, the tongues, the peoples, the nations, and even the holy people of God. The church always thinks that it will get some kind of a free pass. Doesn't know how to pray, still struggling how to fast. You give instructions, there's 55 more questions. People just can't take an instruction and go and sit with it and figure it out. No, it's like, oh, can you tell me step A, and then step 1A, and then step 2A, 3A, 4A, and then step B, and step 2B, 3B. Has to be like that. So the church always thinks, oh, there will be like a soft landing, and there's going to be no soft landing. I'm going to read Revelation 13 at the end of everything so that we can get a better understanding. And I would also like to let you know that it is very necessary for you to stay one step ahead. So when I give you a prophecy and I tell you that the date of the prophecy is this date, it is very helpful for you hearing the prophecy on that day, whether you watch it today, whether you watch it 3 days from now. Unfortunately, if you're going to be watching it 6 months from now, it's going to be a problem for you. But if you're one of those people, you catch it within the first 3 to 5 days. You need to consciously speak to yourself that I've heard this word, and it is now my duty to take this word to the Lord in prayer for him to increase my understanding of it. There's a lot of people, they come here, they hear the prophecies, and because they have consciously worked on who they are, they have this spongy, soft, fertile soil of a soul, of a spirit, of an inside, and they go away, and within a day or 2, 3 days, 5 days, God has given them their own dream of the thing that they heard so that they can actually witness it for themselves and then have what we call a confirming witness. But even if that doesn't happen, when you hear the word of God and you decide to connect with that word in faith, like I have heard the word of the Lord, I now have to take responsibility for what I've heard. I now have to accept what I've heard, and I now need to go to God to expand my understanding and to give me the preparation for this thing. Then what you will find happening is you will start to order your steps as if the prophecy has already happened. So These prophecies that I'm getting now, if you can actually pay attention to them, they're happening really fast. They're happening really, really fast. Some people went back to watch the prophecy that is called 2026, 2027. America's war years are coming. And they were saying, it's amazing how this prophecy was, I think in May, said it's amazing that this woman prophesied that we would be seeing attacks on the media, we would be seeing infighting in the government, we would be seeing the fall of favorites, we would be seeing the short, abrupt end to careers. And before the year is out, they've shot senators. They've shot senators. They've shot CEOs. We've seen infighting in the government and the sudden exit of Elon Musk. That took place after I prophesied, after I brought the prophecy. The biggest figure in U.S. politics since January 2025 had a huge catfight with the president and then bounced. And we haven't seen him, except he's instigating riots in Europe and introducing porn AI to the Japanese and all that. But we haven't seen him active again here on the stage. And yet for a while, the two of them were like 6 and 7. They couldn't move, without each other. So the person was saying that this is just a matter of months. And this is what is happening with these ICE prophecies. Every time I get them, then within a short time, you see that they're now starting to kill people. ICE didn't used to have guns before, but now they're using guns, and now they're being very free with the bullets. And on top of that, you've seen that in the shootings, ICE is always lying that they feared for their life. And that's what the White House is releasing. The White House is actually releasing the lies that I said I saw in my first dream from over a month ago. The wolves are coming. The White House is saying that our agents are fearing for their lives and they were trying to restrain. The lie is exactly as you were told. And so when you hear the prophecy and you start thinking that, oh, you've got time, no. We are in the time of the birthing mechanism where the labor pains are now closer together. They're not like this. When I started, I prophesied for about 2 years with only things happening occasionally. Things would only happen occasionally. It would be very long periods and nothing was happening. And the Lord was giving me time to actually build up the body of work. But now that the body of work is built up, there's 475 printed prophecies on the blog. But over here, there's more than 840 in video. Then what that means is that the Lord has now built up himself a very big library from which he can now pick anything. Sometimes God is just picking sentences. The healthcare is gone. That's a prophecy from 2023. No more healthcare. The healthcare is decimated now. It's just going to get worse. There's a prophecy from 2023. Job crisis, fallen economy, and wage crisis. We're definitely in it now. Some people have been unemployed from a period from 7 months to over a year. That is very, very bad for an economy to not be able to recycle an employee from one job to another. And that person has to be on state benefits. And I don't know how long state benefits last for unemployment. You can see that they're messing with Social Security. You can see that we're in another government shutdown. And the government has specifically instructed that benefits like food, benefits like WIC, this is women and children, women, infants, and children, benefits like housing vouchers are not to be given out. But the same government has just bought $40 billion worth of Argentinian money in, I think it's called a currency swap, to uphold that country's economy that is any minute now from collapse. Their economy has been tottering for a long time. The U.S. government has money to give Israel. The U.S. government has money to give Ukraine. The U.S. government has money to give Argentina. But the U.S. government is telling you that it doesn't have money to pay the people at the airport. It doesn't have money to pay federal workers. So it just fired another bunch of them during this shutdown. You're watching all these things. I told you that the nation would be in chaos. I told you that the nation would be in turmoil. And I also told you that one day you would visibly see a regime government doing every illegal and unconstitutional thing on the street. So if you've heard all those things, the question must be asked, why are you reluctant to simply take yourself and travel in the future to the end of the prophecies and know what's going to happen? Why do you need to see every single latch turn? Prophecy fulfilled. Prophecy fulfilled. Why must you see every single latch turn before you realize that the latch of the killing is coming? Do you need them to kill someone in your family before you finally get it? That part of the Nazi playbook is killing people, killing the undesirables. Do you need to lose a family member, or do you need to be the casualty before you finally get it as you're dying in some this place that God showed me? Do you need to be that one dying in shock? Did you see that this government just let a postal worker die? He was having a heart attack, a black man, and then they said that they were faking him, and then the police kept him. I mean, he's visibly in distress. He's clutching his heart. In the video, many times, his bladder has let go, which is one of the signs of a very big heart attack. He's peed on himself, and the officers, white as usual, just think it's funny. They're telling him, you're faking it, buddy, but faking it is not going to do. But I was saying in 2021 that God was showing me how the U.S. apparatus, the arm that constitutes the police, which is what we're used to dealing with, but now we're about to start dealing with something else. The arm that constitutes the police methodically and systematically carries out their duties in a way to make sure that if they lay their hands on a person of color, specifically a black person, that person more often or not than not should not leave the custody alive. And then people will say, no, but we need to see the beginning of the tape. We need to see what happened before that. Just a moment, please. So if incidents like this are not isolated, then what do you think will happen when there's no structure in the government? What do you think when the government already has structure and it's uninterested in the longevity of certain types of citizens? What do you think is going to happen when the government structure breaks down? Why do I need to spell it out? If you can hear 2 + 2 and then I put an equal sign, why do you need to wait for me to get to the other side of the equal sign and tell you what it equals? Then why will you be a woman who has a child thinking that you will be able to succeed, for instance, in an environment where law and order breaks down? And then you have maybe breakaway groups of men who formerly used to be part of the government forces, but now they're tired of fighting, because that happens a lot in civil conflicts. They're men who served the government and they were fighting on the government side, but then it just keeps going on and on, year after year, month after month of war. And then the man is tired and he's frustrated. He doesn't want to be in the government anymore. And then they desert. They run away. They change their clothes, but they keep their weapons. And then they're in a place and they see a light in a house and they come and knock on the door and you're in there with 2 children. How does this story end for you as a person with breasts in front of men who, by reason of the fact that they have thrown off the last authority that they answer to, their commanding officers, their sergeants and everybody else, how does that end for you when they shoot off the door lock and come in the house because it's cold outside and you don't want to open the door and you're in the house lying, my husband isn't home, and you have no husband? Then what? You know what's going to happen in a situation like that, Miss 2 children? You're going to travel back in time to this moment where you're supposed to get the passports. This moment where you're supposed to be on the internet, but I'm paying my student loans. This is the moment for you to be on the internet looking for remote job opportunities in other countries. But you're not doing that. You're watching me like a movie. And then one day we're going to jump the equal sign and we're going to be on the 2 + 2 is 4 side. Then we're going to get to the number 4. Then you're going to try and jump back to this time where you were supposed to add your 2 and 2 by yourself and know what to do. And you didn't. It's going to be devastating here. And God says that a spell will be on the eyes of the nations. And they're literally going to turn their eyes away because of atrocities. Atrocities. Unimaginable things like gang raping a pregnant woman. And you won't be able to say it's the Chinese. You won't be able to say it's the commies. It's the Russians. Because it'll be you doing it to you. Just like I always told you. The title of the prophecy is Escalate to Military and Paramilitary. It's a very strange title, and it doesn't have a tagline. Escalate to military and paramilitary. And I think we're going to start the Google early because I don't know what the paramilitary is. So just a moment, please. Paramilitary is ICE. The military is the official. I didn't have to Google the military because I know what they are. The military is the official branch of state that is tasked with security. I guess we can just basically call them homeland security. The military is the official branch of a state that is comprised of the weaponry and the armed forces and the governing personnel under the control of the executive and I guess with the parliament or with Congress in the case of the United States. Those fighting forces that basically answer to the state, the apparatus of the state that is legally tasked with exerting force in order to contain conflict and going to fight wars and the protection of the state and by extension the people in the state. But listen to paramilitary. It's literally one sentence. An unofficial force organized similarly to a military force. Nobody's more unofficial than ICE because ICE is not operating as part of a contained military in this country at the moment. I said it's a bunch of pencil pushers that have been upgraded to come outside and wear vests. And because there weren't enough of them, they were rapidly given a slush fund by the government. And then it was basically thrown open to any yokel that is able to shoot and threaten and wants to hit people of color. Anyway, all that uncontained clan rage is now walking around in ICE, aided by other minorities who never said no to a buck in their life. And so that is what it says paramilitary is. It's an unofficial force organized similarly to a military force. So not branded, which is why ICE doesn't have ID to show you. They're walking around and telling you they don't have to show you ID. That's just the military or the authorized people who get in all these recruits that they're basically throwing cash at and tell them, oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about the First Amendment right to, please excuse if there's any noise because of me moving my things around. You don't have to ID yourself. Yes, you have to ID yourself because the authorized forces like the police have names and they have badge numbers. And we even know that they're insured by insurance companies, and it's the insurance companies that pay out whenever there's a civil lawsuit or a criminal lawsuit against them for excessive use of force for killing someone. And so escalate to military and paramilitary. This is a dream that the Lord gave me on October the 14th, 2025, showing me that we are going, please, this dream is not for illegal migrants. I need to clarify that. It's for you, the American citizen. There's absolutely no need for Jesus Christ to give me a dream about the military and the paramilitary when it comes to the people that everyone is joyfully celebrating getting picked up. And the reason for that is because, as you can see, undocumented people in the United States are getting picked up by the paramilitary, and everyone is cool with it because everyone is like, well, if they came here illegally, well, if they had done it the right way, well, if they, yes, not everyone is doing that. There's only a certain type of cooked brain, soft boiled egg brain, that is doing that. And that same brain, mind you, will sit in church and call themselves a child of God because their pastor never read to them one day what the Bible says that Christians are supposed to do to the alien and the foreigner dwelling in the midst, right? You sit in church and you sing Kumbaya, but it doesn't tell you anything about what to do with the widow, what to do with the orphan, and how to treat the stranger and the foreigner and the sojourner, which is basically the person living for a short time, an unassessed amount of time in your midst. But then you will claim that you are Jesus's first grandbaby and I love the Lord and all that, and nobody can call me a racist. You would be shocked if you know how many of these hopeless conversations I've been forced to have by this hopeless type of person that always seems to find my blog. I spend all my time spraying Febreze on this blog, and yet it endlessly attracts flies and their offspring. And why, I'm not sure. But then again, I did say years ago that people think that Satan fears God. Satan doesn't fear God. If there's one place that Satan wants to be near, it's the light. Darkness is always after the light, to be near it, but calling itself light. At the same time, this dream is not to bother with the people who are here. Everybody feels, no, it's just right for them to be picked up. You feel that it's right for them to be picked up, but then what? Even if you didn't go to law school, not that they would have taken you with the way that you reason, but all of a sudden you've forgotten that this is a nation of laws and that there's standard procedure for how to pick up people who are guilty of any crime. And do you know that being in the United States is not even a criminal offense? It actually falls under the family of the misdemeanors. Did you know that? Because right now people are acting as if the people that are being picked up, you know, these ladies that slice the mango and put it into cups, and then they come to all the train stations and they're selling chili mango, and you come from work and they've sliced up a whole mango and a half and put it in the cup, and they're selling it for like half the price of Whole Foods. So these ladies are apparently Tren de Aragua, right? Because we're giving them $4, $4.50, maybe $5 for sliced mango. And then these are the people that I can't call it education. We'll just call it something that you did at school. What something you did at school told you is that when you are about to roll up on this woman, what should happen is that the 6'1" Skeeter, cousin Skeeter, should then air fly and land on her back. If he sees her running, he doesn't know how to de-escalate the situation, right? They're out here calling women B word and C word to their face. But then you're something that you picked up in school. We can't call it an education. All of a sudden, you've forgotten everything that you learned in social studies class and history class and public policy class, and you can't remember those things. Plus the Bible, you can't remember what it says, which is the standard procedure for a so-called Christian nation. And I think it's great, actually, that you can't remember, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Because you can't remember how it's supposed to go with Jose and Maria. It's wonderful that the military and the paramilitary will not remember how it's supposed to go when it's you. So let's find out what God says about how it's supposed to go. Escalate to military and paramilitary, October 14, 2025. Escalate to military and paramilitary is the name of this dream, and that is what is going to happen to anyone who is taken by the ICE forces of the United States. The Lord was showing me scenes of America in the future and the near future. Please read that in your mind and interpret it as now. It is best to read it and interpret it in your mind as now, because there will be almost no time between the getting of this dream and seeing the implementing of it. Yah was showing me what will happen if you are seen or declared by ICE forces or police as dangerous, quote fingers, unruly, quote fingers, disorderly, quote fingers, or impeding or obstructing an active investigation, quote fingers. So this means that if anything is interpreted by ICE and also by association, any assisting ordinary police force, if it is seen as a disturbance of the peace, if it is seen as a protest, or if anyone is seen as a protester or a loiterer with malicious intent, if you're questioning them about the law, if you're filming them to get an active record of what they do, if you're sitting in your car with the engine off, meaning that you are not driving, you're just parked, maybe in a driveway, you're parked outside a CVS, maybe you buy your food at Taco Bell and then you sit in the Taco Bell parking lot outside, sitting in your car to have your Taco Bell. Or if you get angry in any situation involving these people, ICE and the ordinary assisting police force, if you get angry at how you're being handled or how someone else is being handled, if you lose your temper in any situation involving one, that means you, one means you, or more people, then you can be taken by these people, but you will not pass through the ordinary process of arrest. The way that Yah showed it to me is that the government has already actively defaulted to a fully military way of doing things, but they are not disclosing that to the public. The U.S. government has gone fully North Korea. The U.S. government has abandoned any pretense of wanting to follow American law when it comes to what kind of presidential powers the leader of the country has, what kind of powers can he exercise by himself, what kind of powers can he only exercise in tandem with Congress, meaning that he has to get their approval before taking an action. God is saying that the government of the United States has already zoned fully into a single player only system, but that is not being disclosed to the American people. It's not coming out for them to say, hello, everyone. We've thought about it. We got together and we decided that this 2-party, 5-party, 8-party system with open votes and with your viewpoints and with all 3 branches of government working together, we've decided that it's a bit cumbersome. And so we've turned into a Kim Jong-un situation, and we just thought we would let you know because it's our duty to keep the citizenry informed. If you're waiting for that day to come, it's never going to come. And I've always been telling you that. Never expect this government to ever come and formally announce to you that we have now turned into a dictatorship. And the reason for that is very simple. No country on earth has ever come out and announced it's a dictatorship. In fact, dictators always come out and reassure the people that nothing will change. Nothing will change. I vow to protect your rights. I love you. I see you as family. That's the speech of a dictator. So Yah is saying, the way that Yah showed me is that the government has actively defaulted fully into a military way of doing things, and they just have not disclosed it to the people. That means that they are set to provoke from the beginning in order to get a reaction. And then, obviously, when the person reacts, and then sees the opportunity immediately to distance that person from help and separate them from anything familiar, including abusing all of their rights in law and handing them over quickly without leaving a trail, if possible. The process is to hand them over to full military and paramilitary forces. It's a kind of street to prison pipeline. Okay, pick you up off the street and quickly whisk you into the prison system. But instead of it being a real prison that you'll end up in, or real police officers that are going to pick you up off the street and then process you correctly where you get to go to jail, when you think about it, you will realize what a privilege it is. If you get into any altercation with the police, that the police must identify themselves to you. They have to tell you that they have a reasonable suspicion. They have to name to you the crime that they say they're arresting you for. A police officer on the street doesn't necessarily need to have a warrant. And the reason for that is because you're standing in public. You have no right to privacy when you're standing out in the open. It's not like when they come to your private property and they have to show you a warrant before they can enter, because you are protected from unreasonable search and seizure by the Constitution. However, police have to identify themselves to you. They have to read you your rights. They have to tell you that you have the right to remain silent. And that means that automatically when they read you that, you don't have to answer any of their questions. If they decide that, oh, they're going to detain you because they have reasonable suspicion of a crime, you don't even need to say another word to them until your lawyer gets there, until you can get a lawyer appointed to you. You can sit there, they can question you, they can grill you. Obviously, when they do this thing based on ego, most of them, they become so afraid, and then they start trying to look for a cause. They love to detain people first and then look for a cause afterwards, because they know if they are found to be in the wrong, which they are the majority of the time, the police get sued more than anybody else as a collective in this country. They're constantly picking up lawsuits because their egos are far bigger than their brains and their knowledge of the law that they claim that they're enforcing. And so they often end up in hot water. But still, when you think about it, compared to what Yah is saying here, it is a mercy to have to know that it's Officer Hansen, badge number what, picking you up. You get put into a police car. Those cars have cameras in there, so your presence is marked in there. It is very important for the writ of habeas corpus later if you have to end up in a courthouse, because that insists that your physical body has to be brought to answer the charge. It literally means to have the body, or to bring the body, meaning that they book you with something, they charge you with something. You know that you're now in the street to prison pipeline. They're going to put you in the holding cell. When they take you to the station, you obviously have to give a statement. Do you see all these little stops? Of course you're angry and annoyed, especially when they overreach their power. But there's so many stops that can prove where you were. And if you already know where I'm heading, Escalate to paramilitary and military. As I was writing down this dream, I just realized that this is the literal fulfillment of this is Jared. You will go missing. You will disappear. That's what Yah told me when I woke up from this dream. That they're going to disappear U.S. citizens. Now, the U.S. citizens are sitting here because, as far as they know, disappearance is for people like Saddam. Disappearing people is for Arab people. I think it's called rendition. Extraordinary rendition, or just plain old rendition, where the American government picks you up and takes you into a plane and then flies the plane around for 2 hours, kicking you in your private parts, stomping on your private parts, stomping on your head, stomping on your neck, and then saying, we know you're a terrorist. And the reason that they keep you up in the air is because the air is no man's land. Nobody owns the air. They won't land you in any country for them to be later accused, as if anyone would do it, that, oh, this man was stomped in Charles de Gaulle airport. He was stomped on French soil, and so he has the right to sue the American government in France. There's nothing like that. They will keep you in the air and choke you and attack you and assault you and fly you all around, abusing you. And then when they're running out of gas, they're going to come and park you for unnamed crimes in Guantanamo Bay for an unnamed amount of time. It's indefinite detention. That's what it's called. And I've been talking about this stuff for a very long time. That's what this is Jared's statement is all about. That they'll get a hold of you and they will just tell your family that your status is pending. This is if they even agree that they have you. And so, the way that things are supposed to work, there's a ton of what I'll just call paper trail. There's a ton of paper trail to show that you existed, that she was picked up, that he was picked up, that the family was picked up. Neighbors saw, neighbors recorded, but that's not all. Neighbors got the front license plate of the police car, so we will automatically know who was driving that police car that day. You can see that ICE have the license plate covered. Their license plates are covered. They don't show badges. Their faces are covered. They could be, excuse me, please, anybody. ICE can be anybody. It can be any random sicko off the street getting together in their own private gangs and just targeting minorities, because the Supreme Court has given the president the power, I think it was on September 8th, to racially profile people. That's one of the things that I was reminded of when I was watching the 3 prophecies that I managed to get through today. In the Wolves Are Coming, I think it was made, the video was made September 8th, and I think the prophecy is from September the 5th or something like that. The Supreme Court just recently allowed the administration to look at you, to look at your skin tone, and to look at how you speak, and basically say, you look undocumented to us. We're going to take you in until you can prove to us. So now the burden of proof has shifted. The burden of proof is on the arresting party, the arresting authority, to prove that you have reasonable suspicion of a crime. But in this racist Ku Klux Klan nest, it's always a crime to not look like the majority demographic. In our community, it's called walking while black, breathing while black, shopping while black. If you walk into an upmarket store, you're the only one who's going to get followed. That's profiling. It's automatically going to be assumed if you walk through the door and something does beep that you stole it. It can never be the shop person who left that little gray tag on it. That thing beeps, it's automatically you that stole it. And then she will swear that she took it all off. And so it has to be you. And then you have to go through the embarrassment of going through the receipt. And then the sweater is there. The sweater is on the receipt. Money did come off your card for it, but then the little tag is still on it. And then all she can do is, they won't even apologize. They don't even apologize. I know that people watching me, certain people watching me, are getting triggered right now because it's happened to you. You've been embarrassed in Gucci. You've been embarrassed in the red bottom shoe place. You went to spend your same money in these places the way others do, and then it was automatically assumed, why are you here? You don't belong here. You went to the golfing place and got embarrassed. You went to the country club and got embarrassed and got shamed and got profiled and got asked, hey, good fella, where do I park the car? And he can see you dressed top to toe in something as expensive as him, but he just assumed that you're the valet. Certain groups of people in this country get profiled every day by other groups of people in this country. And apparently nobody is supposed to talk about it because it's seen as not good manners. It's not good manners to profile people. It's not good manners to go into the system of government and legalize your right to profile people. That's what's not good manners. So when we depart from the ordinary paper trail, we'll call it the paper trail, where from from streets to prison, the pipeline actually marks your existence. People know who you are. People know that you were there. People know that you existed. The body cam is on, picking you up. The conversation is there to basically give us the flavor of how the altercation went. And so when you're doing things in a paramilitary way, with just random people that can just come up and pick up other people without having to explain their presence, explain their reasons, explain anything like that, I can't state or overstate how dangerous that is. And God says that the plan now is basically, it's a kind of street to prison pipeline, but instead of an actual prison that you end up in, or instead of real police officers who first take custody of you, I saw in this dream that you went to another place where people who won't identify themselves to you can do anything to you. I'm just going to carry on reading, and then I will come back and we go over to get basically the pith of the dream, the heart and the core of the dream. So I saw that if you are loud, okay, if you start to loudly protest, which is what a lot of people do, because a lot of people in this country are actually scared that they're going to be killed on the spot. And that is because police officers lie to a level that is beyond criminal. I really, until I started to do my own research into it, I really didn't know to what depth police officers lie. And now there's so much footage flooding the internet of just how they lie, because occasionally it would just be a one-off. A person has to sometimes go live to save their own life. Sometimes you have to put your phone on so that you can at least get 40 people on. And when the officer sees that they're going live, they tend to back off, because previous to the beauty queens that now have face masks concealing their identities, officers don't want to go viral. Officers don't want to gain for themselves 7.8 million views in the course of only 1 year, to show them being aggressive, to show them lying, to show them threatening, to show them stealing money off of the people that they arrest, and to get fired, to get forcibly sent out to pasture, forced out of this force. You know, yes, you go on your pension, but now you're only 41, and it was 20 good years of earning that salary that you're now going to lose because you wanted to be a macho man. And so it was different, and people are often loud. They often start to raise their voice. I'm not resisting, because they want to get the attention of bystanders, because it's very easy to get killed in the hands of a white police officer in America. There's people from all over the world watching me, and you've never been arrested by a white police officer in your life. If you're in India, you don't even know what I'm talking about. You get arrested by somebody who looks just like you, and the dynamic is just basically, sometimes you look at video, it's just the two of you cussing each other out, and the guy's telling you were going, and he's like, no, I wasn't, and there's basically the two of you arguing with you. But the dynamic is very different when you live in a country that has, from inception, an uneven power structure. And as much as people would like to deny that, and as much as people like to say, people love to equivocate. You're talking about apples, and then they will immediately say, but what about oranges? And unless you actually had classes where the professors are trained to show you what equivocation is, then it's very easy for someone to nudge you off your points by equivocating, by attempting to take the first argument you are making that has its own set of facts, and then force you to apply those set of facts to another set of facts that they just arbitrarily bring in and try to pretend. And what they will say is they're the same. And the way that they're arguing is because an apple and an orange fall in the same family of fruit, then it should be the same. But it's not the same. They don't taste the same. They don't look the same. They don't grow on the same type of tree. They may grow in similar weather, and they may both taste nice as fruit, but they're not the same. So when somebody equivocates, what they're trying to do is basically dilute the original argument. And that's usually because they feel attacked, or they feel ashamed, or they feel bad, or they feel that they are being made to answer for something in the moment, when you may not be forcing them to answer for anything in the moment. People often think that the way that they feel makes an argument invalid, and nobody would know that better than me, because I'm constantly sitting here and I find myself annoyingly have to defend God's prophecies over multiple years, simply because people feel afraid. That's not my business how you feel. If the prophecy is scary to you, then you're going to have to work that out at your house. They feel afraid, or they feel that, no, God wouldn't say that. Again, that's not my business. Your unbelief is a problem that you're going to have to work out at your house. It doesn't change a thing about what I've said or have been saying on the Lord's behalf, because I have my tablet here. And the fact that I have my tablet here and I'm reading these multiple hundreds of prophecies from this tablet means that your feelings are absolutely irrelevant to the fruit at hand. Once I start talking about these facts, the way that you process them at your home is your problem. And usually that goes according to your spiritual knowledge, your spiritual maturity. There are people who have a lot of spiritual knowledge and zero maturity to handle the knowledge. Having a lot of spiritual knowledge without spiritual maturity is like having a kite with no string. The second you get out into the winds, that thing is gone, because you don't have the string to tether it, to keep it within your control. It is your maturity that actually enables you to handle the things that you read, the spiritual visions that God shows you. Imagine, some people would be, with my gifts, would be on every talk show right now. They wouldn't have lasted 3 months in this thing. They would have been on Sid Roth, Rod Roths, and all the Roths. Yes, and the Lord revealed to me, and they would be running for the hills. A street prophet of note, prostituting themselves on every podcast, prostituting God's prophecies for the sake of being seen. Oh, because they have the knowledge, but no maturity to handle it. These prophecies, they only work if you have some form of spiritual knowledge, some form of spiritual maturity, and above all, the understanding that their existence is not about you. Their existence is about God's sovereignty. God exists whether you pass away tomorrow or live to the ripe old age of 91. He exists apart from you. He's the original apple tree. He's the original fruit tree. You don't get to come with your orange feelings and say, well, aren't they the same? They're not the same. And because there's so few people that will just sit unmoved, utterly unbothered, and articulate to different groups of people who all have their different groups and their different beliefs. Black Americans have their different groups and their different beliefs. White Americans have their different groups and different beliefs. There's Asian Americans, there's Hispanic Americans, there's a whole melting pot of people who have come here and naturalized, people from Africa, people from different places who have come and naturalized, or they've come and they've been born. And each one thinks that the information has to cater to them, but there's nothing like that. The prophecies are centralized, and then it is you that will find your place in the circle of life, or you will simply get left behind. And so there's a very uneven dynamic of power in the United States. And those lines of power in the United States also run very straight racially, with melanated peoples at the lower end of the spectrum and people who are not melanated at the top end of the spectrum. And that is the way that it works here. In countries that are homogenous, like Japan, like Korea, like Myanmar, what are you talking about? Like India, like Pakistan, what are you talking about? When have they last seen a white person touch anything in their government? This concept of what I'm describing is very alien to some cultures. Right now, I know my Nigerian viewers are just like, poor Black Americans. But at the same time, South Africans are very triggered. Zimbabweans are very triggered. Angolans, who were colonized by the Germans, extremely triggered. All of French West Africa, triggered, because they understand what I'm saying. They understand that power dynamics usually tend to precisely mirror race dynamics. And this is even strange for colonized countries, because in this country, the race dynamics are majority over minority. Someone from Cote d'Ivoire, I think, someone from Angola has never been called a minority in his life. A South African cannot be called a minority. He is the majority demographic, and yet still is at the bottom of the totem pole for a long time when it came to power. So these dynamics, the fact that people don't want to confront them, it literally has nothing to do with the task that I have to do here. Because imagine you receive a true word from God, but then you deliver it in velvet slippers, velvet gloves. You try to mute it. You try to tone it down. Aren't you a hypocrite? Are you not a hypocrite? It's literally attempting to muzzle the accurate rendering of the word of God. And so for my part, I am content that the hypocrisy be out there. When the word hits, the hypocrisy will also hit. The minute this rock goes out, all the hit dogs will holler. Well, I just want it to be known that that's okay, Marcy. You can want it to be known. It doesn't change anything about what I'm saying. So I've been seeing a lot of this prophecy provoked me to go and look, and I, for some reason, the footage that was coming up was mostly interactions of the police with white people here in America, and the dynamic is so different to what I've usually seen. White people not only know their rights, but they will mock the police officer and they will live in that altercation. They will troll the police officer terribly because most of the officers don't actually know the first thing about the law that they're enforcing. Usually it has to be the chief, or not even the supervisors know the law. The supervisors tend to be as dumb as the person, the actual officer on the scene who's about to cost his department a lot of money because he doesn't know anything about the law. White people are knowledgeable in the law. They know their rights. They also have a confidence that comes from, I don't think it's a conscious knowledge that they have, but they have a confidence that is often missing in altercations of minorities with law enforcement. And that is because it never crosses a white person's mind ever that he will be hurt or shot during an interaction with the police. And yet death is the ruling and the primary thought, even in the mind of a female like myself, if I should ever have to deal with law enforcement. I'm not expecting reasonableness. I'm not expecting to be listened to. In fact, should I open my mouth to speak the law, I am fully expecting rage, because now it's a situation where I am a visible minority exhibiting higher knowledge than someone who will naturally believe that he is smarter than me just because we don't look the same. So death, false accusation, extremely aggressive types of restraints are always the first things in the minds of people at the bottom of the power dynamic, who also happen to be at the bottom of the race dynamic. But it's completely different. White people will fight the officer, punch the officer. In some cases, in some rural districts, they have been known to jump into the officer's car and run away. Literally, if the officer comes and leaves the door open, people have jumped in the car and stolen the cruiser and run away and earned absolutely no shots. No shots whatsoever. On the other spectrum, many people have died trying to get their license out of their pocket, and then over their dead body, it was said, I was sure he had a weapon. You ask someone to get the license, he's getting the license, and then you assume that all of us are rolling with Glocks because that's what we do. From birth, your 5th birthday present is a Glock. And then we're just all rolling thug deep. So in looking at these things, I understand the way that God was walking me through this prophecy, because it's very necessary for people of color to hear this, as well as everybody to hear this, because there's different stages right now that are happening in America. There's extreme fear in the Latin American community. There's extreme fear because both citizens, DACA, who are legally covered, citizens naturalized, they're fine, or they're supposed to be fine. And then there's DACA, they're legally covered because their origins were dipped in not being covered. And then there's the undocumented. But because of the new racial profiling ambit, because the range is so wide, basically you see him, you grab him. That's how it is. So there's extreme fear in that community. But then what is distressing, for instance, that has been blooming for months in the African American community is this belief that it will not touch them. And so what they're doing is exactly what those at the higher ambit of the power dynamic are doing right now to the Native, to the Hispanics, which is, well, if you hadn't come here and if you had done things the right way, that's what white people are doing. Not all white people, of course. There's a certain group. Within every group, there are subgroups. So there's a massive subgroup that is not just MAGA, that is not just conservative. There are people who are independents who share the same mindset that no, it's America first and whatever. They identify with the president's mindset on this. So there are them, and then liberals are staunchly opposed to this. And it's so odd to see the people who so often do not model biblical values perfectly nailing it on this one, in a way that even the church is failing to do as a collective. But then you see African Americans now mocking the Hispanics and saying, but you voted for this. And all I can think of, because I've seen from God that this is coming, and I've been talking about this for a month and a half, is that will it be so funny when these laws that you're not recognizing being rolled back because you don't spend as much time swallowing the laws naturally, like TikToks, the way white people do. Will you find it funny when you no longer can vote? Because that's what God showed me in the dream that I said, I cried so much that I couldn't go to work. I haven't done it yet, but that one will be coming up pretty soon. Will you find it funny? Will you be okay with anyone mocking you when they roll it back, so that we go back to segregation, so that we go back to, you won't have any suffrage as a black woman, you won't be able to vote, when you go back to basically being a monitored pet? Because I don't think that a lot of people in this country know that the rights that they have, especially as Black Americans, I don't think that a lot of people know that those rights only exist because, how can I put it? Well, there's different way to make laws. You can promulgate a law. When you promulgate a law, it's basically like, I want you to imagine going into an iron forge, getting a brand new lump of iron, and then you put it into the fire and you create a new thing, a new law. That's what the Bill of Rights is like. That's what the Constitution is like. So the Constitution came out a certain way. And in that original version, Black people were just property, 3/5 of a person. You were basically a controlled, owned, and monitored piece of property, a pet, in other words. And then the amendments, even though they have the same power as the new metal that you brought out, right? Because they are forged onto the original piece. The Constitution is this big portion of my hand in the center. The amendments, as you can see, flow seamlessly out of the original documents. So an amendment by itself, if you were to break it off, it wouldn't make any sense because it has to be forged as part of the whole. But imagine if someone came along, someone called Donald J. Trump, or just whoever comes after him, but we're not going to be that lucky to get to someone, and just began to break off the amendments one by one. Break them off. No freedom of assembly, no freedom of religion, no free speech, no freedom, no free press, right? No protection from unlawful search and seizure. No 13th Amendment. Could we say that the Constitution has gone away? Not really. It's the amendments that will go away. And when the amendments go away, you will have this original unsightly document that turns you into, once more, a controlled pet. Will you still be making think pieces on TikTok telling them, oh no, but we told you to vote for Kamala? And then you also, I have to say, will go and sit in a church and claim that you're a child of God because you also have never studied the Bible verses that the God you claim you belong to said that you should follow in how to treat the alien and the stranger. So you can see that this is a very delicate set of prophetic messages that God has given me, because there's reproof for so many people, but the reproof is in accordance with the sins that you are currently sinning. And the sins that you are sinning are sins of the heart. And that is why God is allowing this to happen to you. So as you can see, it's just one belt. It's just one stick. But it will be beating different groups of sinners on their backs. So I was talking about the freedom, the laid back disdain that white Americans have when they come into altercations with law enforcement. They have no problem mocking the officer and saying, "You're pretty dumb. I don't know how you have this job, and I'm going to enjoy suing you." You can barely hear that come out of the mouth of anyone else. They've arrested prominent black lawyers, prominent black political figures, because when they look at you, you all look the same. So it doesn't matter. And usually they will arrest you, and you will only get your redress after you go through the embarrassment. I've seen them put black Marines on the ground, black Navy SEALs, even former black officers end up on the ground and cuffed and saying, I identified myself. And the officer is just blowing past that because this is standard practice. It's a fun pastime, no matter what other people claim. Oh no, why didn't you just comply? The reason you say those things is because you never ever reached the point in a normal traffic stop of being aggressively spoken to. You've never been profiled. You don't even know what that feels like or what that means. Because how can you profile the majority by the majority? Like I said, as I watched today in one of my old videos, I said that if you constantly go into a store and the store owner looks just like you and he always goes, "Oh, Mrs. W," and he gives you order your 12 buns and he always gives you the freshest buns from the morning. But then when Mrs. B or Mrs. L comes in, then he always somehow seems to pack their bags full of the stale buns from yesterday or 2 days ago. And so in their minds, this is not a good bakery because it always gives stale and day-old buns. But Mrs. W doesn't know anything about that because she gets the freshest buns from the first batch made in the morning. The only day that it will ever dawn on Mrs. W that this is perhaps not as good a bakery as she thought is the day that the bakery goes rogue and begins to give the other people the same old buns, and they'll continue having the same mindset that this is really a terrible bakery, and we are really sad for ourselves because this is the only bakery for 5 miles. If I want fresh bread, I'm going to have to go further out. And so they continue having to live with bad buns. But the day that the bakery owner loses his ever-loving mind and starts to give Mrs. W bad buns, that's the day she's about to become an activist. When she has her first taste of stale and day-old buns. And she's going to ask him, and he's going to say, "That's all I've got, lady." His attitude is going to change. He's going to give her the same attitude that he always gave Mrs. B and Mrs. L and Mrs. Asian American, Mrs. A. And all of a sudden, Mrs. W is going to question how she ever thought the bakery was a good bakery. And everybody else is going to stare at her like, well, welcome to our experience. She's going to be in disbelief. She's going to be in anger. She's going to be in grief. She's going to want to activate the other ladies, but they'll be staring at her like, we've always eaten this buns. You said that they were good. So eat them too? And that's what's happening in America. Many dynamics happening at the same time, but one rod to beat them all. God says that the new procedure is to separate you from normalcy as soon as possible so that you cannot be found. So that you cannot be found. That is the new procedure. To whisk you basically out of real life and put you into some scary, suspended state of detention where nobody knows where you are. Nobody knows how you are. Nobody knows who took you. How do we even start the search when we don't know if you're going to the local police station where we can all Zoom there with our phones to continue waiting for them to bring you? And then we wait for an hour, 2 hours, and then it's clear you're not coming because an unmarked car filled with unmarked men took you, and now you could be anywhere. And so, if you're loud, violent, upset, angry, rude to law enforcement, aggravated because you have been provoked by the law enforcement themselves, aggressive, seeking answers. You're asking a lot of questions. Who are you? Can I see some ID? Can I get your name? Are you with ICE? Who are you? If you are abusive to them, or you try to cause harm in any way, or if you are only deemed to be any of those things, meaning that you are none of these things, and they simply lie on you, claim that you were reaching for a gun, claim that you were aggressive, which is why 8 of them jumped on you and one of them put his knee in between your buttocks as a woman, groped your whole front and said it was because you were wriggling. She was wriggling. So if you are these things during your arrest, or if you are claimed to be these things even though you weren't, Yah says you will be escalated with haste to the military and the paramilitary by the local police with extradition speed. Extradition speed is when you go and grab Osama bin Laden and just rush him out of Afghanistan before the Afghan people even know what's going on, before the UN knows what's going on, before anybody knows what's going on. You just in and out. You just grab them with your Navy SEALs, breaking about 50 international laws because you can, because you're the bakery owner. And then before you know it, the person is gone. Extradition, they catch you. One country has you. Quick deal is made. You're gone. And he says from the moment that you are referred, they will handle your case, your booking, and your processing in a military way, if you even get that. They will handle everything about you in a military way, if you even get the processing done. Just a moment, please. So in the dream, the way it looked was like a court martial, which I think just the military has that. Normal people don't have that. And a court martial is when you're accused of doing something, but you're in the military, you're in the armed forces, I guess. This is not the ordinary cops, okay? So this is the Navy, I think the Air Force. These people, they live in a different ecosystem. They don't get normal lawyers. They don't get normal whatever. It's a completely closed process that is held by them in their own way. And that's how it was looking. Real police officers who always take a statement from the arrested person, real lawyers who get to have access to you and things like that. It doesn't apply. That's where I saw them taking people, and people were standing there. And it's so curious that the way that America is restraining people right now is with zip ties. I hope you remember my old prophecies. Those of you who have been here a long time, you will remember that God showed me that when it was time for Russia to take Americans into slavery, that I saw that they were using zip ties. And the way that God first started up that body of prophecies to me was just to show me zip ties raining, like raining from the sky, obviously. But it was like somebody was pouring out a barrel outside. You know when you have a view that is limited here? And so somebody could be doing something above this area, but you won't see it. It was like somebody was just pouring out these big drums of zip ties, and they were just falling in front of me. White, red, yellow, blue, purple, green, like that. Zip ties just falling. And at first I used to wonder, why am I seeing zip ties? What are the zip ties for? But then when Yah told me that America will be punished with slavery for what it did to his people, and then I saw the people getting restrained with zip ties, and I remember asking God, but why are they using zip ties? You know, because original slavery was done with metal chains on the neck. Sometimes they even used to put a whole chain, a whole mask, a whole metal mask on people's face with something on the mouth. Because when they were working and harvesting things like sugarcane, harvesting things like watermelon in the field and stuff like that, they wanted them to work without eating a single piece of the products. So they were only supposed to work and eat the rations that they were given at lunchtime, or eat the rations that they will be given only at the end of the day. And they didn't want them eating even a little piece of it to refresh themselves when they were doing that backbreaking work. And so they put that whole face muzzle on them whereby they could breathe, but their mouth was covered, and the whole head would be chained in that iron mask. And so God was telling me when I asked, oh, but Lord, the zip ties though, because the zip ties would be so tight that I saw people's hands puff up and turn purple. The zip ties were made so tight that the zip tie was cutting into the flesh. And God said, who's going to spend money on chains for Americans? That's what he said, just like that. Celestial, who's going to spend money on metal chains for Americans? Zip ties are cheap. That's what they're going to use. So just imagine the jarring shock of it when you start seeing these arrests and they're just grabbing people and they don't even have cuffs. This is how you just know that they're randoms from the street. They don't even have cuffs. They're just putting people in zip ties. When I see my prophecies happening live in front of me, I always remember what I used to say in the older prophecies. And it wasn't me. The Lord would give it to me. And he said, tell America that her punishments will be carried out on her with exactitude. Exactitude means nothing more than you did, but nothing less than you did. So as you zip tie now, you and Connor and Marcy will be zip tied by Putin. And the very questions that you are asking now, like they should have come here legally, can you imagine when you get to Paraguay and nobody speaks English and they call that one English guy to come out of the back room, and that will be his moment of glory because he's just been chilling there with his English, and not much going on. And then the plane loads start arriving, and the Paraguayan immigration guy is saying something, and he's speaking his language, and he knows you don't understand, and he's saying something with all confidence, and you can see from his demeanor and his attitude that it's not going positively for you at the checkpoint place. And then you get there, and then the guy comes from the back and he begins to translate for his supervisor and say, why didn't you do this legally? Mind you, you're running from a war, right? So it's not like you're going on holiday. No, you're fleeing active conflict in the United States. And so obviously Paraguay people have jumped ship ages ago. The embassy's closed. Where are you going to get a visa from? And by that time, America's banned everywhere. You're not going to be able to get in anywhere visa free. All this queen and princess behavior is going away. One of my prophecies is fulfilling right now. People are all over social media making videos. Don't go to America. Don't go to the United States. Don't go there on holiday, especially if you look like this. Don't go there from Brazil. They'll grab you and racially profile you. And they did that to a Colombian woman. Just arrested the lady in Times Square. She's there with her daughter. This was months ago, I think in March or the earlier part of the year. There with her daughter, just jumped on her. ICE just jumped on the lady. Said she was an illegal Hispanic, whatever. The woman's crying out. She can't speak English and her child is there with no English. And it's the Spanish speaking citizens that are trying to say, no, she's Colombian. She's not from here. And ICE is like just dragging the woman off. And you see the local police. The New York City police just standing there as useless as salted pretzels and just saying, well, if that's the case, they'll figure it out at the station. And they left that lady's 12-year-old daughter there with no guardian. Can you imagine, even if you're 25 years old, to be left on your own in Times Square in New York City when you're not from there? That's a human trafficking dream waiting to happen. The police don't do anything. It was now the bystanders, and the child is obviously having the worst traumatizing experience of her life. Do you know how many foreign nationals are going live in their own countries, speaking in languages that we don't understand, talking about our wild animal brutality tactics here? All these things. I was saying to my mom, I said, there's no way. There's no way to come back from this. The global shame alone can never be fixed. Even if an angel came to be the next president, the way that people will hate, the way that people will remember. People are making videos hand over fist. They're making videos fulfilling my prophecy from just 2 to 3 months ago that America will become a travel advisory nation. I can't remember when I made it, but I know it can't have been that long. I've made so many in a short period of time where God says, yes, other countries will issue travel advisories for the United States. Other countries will formally put on their country website, we do not advise travel to the United States at this time. How do you bid for the World Cup and then you want to arrest the 10,000 Africans that will be coming here to blow vuvuzela? What are you going to do about that? You're going to just jump on all the South Africans that will come to do fun, 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 fun. Is that your plan? To jump on all the people that are wearing Brazil jerseys, and then when you see the Australians in the Australian jersey, then you leave them alone. When you see the British in the British jersey, then you leave them alone. Do you actually think that finally, praise the Lord, it's come to me, do you think that you can beat the allegations of racism that you've been denying all this time because it's just us in here, and you want to gaslight the people in here that you're not racist, and now you are on the jumbotrons of the world as a racist because everyone can see who you're chasing, who you're arresting, who you're targeting. So then it wasn't a subjective lie. So you weren't being lied on all along. So you actually were that. But then in here where it was private, then you could say things like it was a long time ago and let's move past that. Let's grow. But now everybody can see that the growth is not in the room with us. Because in order for there to be growth, the first thing that growth stems out of actually is acknowledgement that there's a problem. But in America, people are always told that there's no problem. So then where would the growth come from? Obviously, there's been no growth. And now not only is there no growth, but now we're about to regress back into the original square of the Constitution. We're about to go back to the good old days. Literally in my dream, Black people were told that they were 3/5 of a person. Does it sound familiar? Literally in the dream, it was declared that Black people were 3/5 of a person. And I started crying uncontrollably in the dream because it was for everybody Black within these borders. So I continue. The new procedure is applicable to a party of one. Basically, if they catch you, this is if you cannot run, like all the ladies that I've seen trying to outrun ICE, all these grandmas that we've been seeing, all these women, all these 19-year-old teens. This new procedure is applicable to a party of one, even if you are not escalating the situation. As long as the police or ICE deem you a threat, you will be escalated to military and paramilitary, even as a party of one, meaning it's the army and the military who will handle you from there on out once you are escalated. So the dreams themselves was just these dreams of unrest and tumult. They just kept coming and coming, and I can't say that there was anything really remarkable about them. Okay, I would say 3 or 4 dreams, but you know when you have dreams like that, they tend to just meld. So it was more or less the same dream with nothing that I can really remember sticking out. So I'll just describe one of the dreams. The Lord was giving me short dreams of what he called political violence. As I slept, I saw many dreams of the crowd control of protesters that should not have gone the way that it went, in that people came out as usual. This was a very big protest, okay? And people came out as usual when they hear that ICE is coming to an area, or when they hear that ICE has already been active in an area attacking and chasing people, or when a city is in distress because of an overabundance of military presence in that area. So people mobilized. Maybe they heard that ICE was coming. Maybe they heard that ICE was already there and doing damage. Or maybe they just saw that their city was starting to decline because of too much military, too many men in fatigues, too many tanks, too many of these trucks, and things like that. And so they mobilized. But what I saw is that the police force was very brutal against citizens. Very brutal. Please bear in mind, as I said at the beginning of this dream, this is a warning for citizens of the United States. You are documented. You are fine. You are not in fear of absolutely anything. And therefore, sadly, you're walking around with a mindset that you can't be touched and that nothing can happen to you and that you'll never be next because citizens aren't next. That's because you haven't been listening to Master's Voice prophecies. Because not only are the foreigners, God told them that he has no problem with them. And God told them that he would drive them away from the United States by any means possible. The prophecies even stated, God said that I will use distressing means. There's nothing more distressing than ICE grabbing you all of a sudden. There's nothing worse than that. You saw the way in the beginning, they put those men in white t-shirts, white shorts, chained them by the neck, chained them one to the other, and then each ICE member is standing next to a prisoner with his hand on his neck. How do you do that and put the international community in distress like that? How do you put videos out like that? The U.S. government is doing hype hit 'em up style videos of chasing people down. So it's funny. It's a game. Then Russia will come. Then you will start that usual Karen nonsense. But what have we done? What have we done? Do you know how naked God has made us here in this country? Can you imagine a drop of Venezuelan sympathy when the Chinese come and surround this place and are standing on every square inch? You know those people are a lot, right? And because they anticipate some kind of pushback, some kind of fight from this country, you know that they will deploy the largest army that we've ever seen in our lives. And this is saying something for China, because China doesn't go anywhere to fight wars. This is not me saying it. This is a famous American economist, Jeffrey Sachs, saying that in China's 4,000 plus year history, this is 4,000 years of existing. This is 4,000 years of Ming Dynasty, Han Dynasty, all the dynasties. This is 4,000 years of the fact that they're human beings just like everybody else, which means they've had enemies. They have not sent a conquering force anywhere to go and fight wars. In fact, there was one point where even the Japanese were so advanced that they were able to conquer those people or conquer some part of them and beat them. Imagine tiny Japan able to beat China at some point in their history. Yet, there's no record. There's no record of them being an occupying, murdering, warmongering force as this country that has not yet clocked a 500-year lifespan. So then it is clearly a policy and a heart-led decision of the people who live in this country. You put out a video that looks identical to when ISIS used to make people kneel and shoot them. And maybe there's a reason that the videos look the same. Maybe they had the same producer and the same actors in them. So people came out to protest, but what I saw is that the response of the government was too aggressive. It was too brutal. It was too sharp. The force of the police was so brutal against the very brutal against the citizens, to the point that they were arresting people for literally any reason, including just being there at the protest, just for coming out to protest, just for coming out, your right of assembly, your right to petition the government for redress, which is what a lot of people are doing. In LA, that's why they were marching. They were saying they didn't want a military occupation. They were saying they didn't want tanks. They didn't want soldiers. They didn't want this and that and that. Excuse me, please. And they have the right to do that. Those are constitutionally protected rights. Peaceful assembly, the right to redress, the right to petition the government, to hear your grievances. You have a right And protesting is an integral part of exercising that right. It's not always that you have to come and sit at the negotiating table. The negotiating table isn't big enough for all the people who are grieved. The negotiating table isn't big enough for all the people whose moral consciences are being scarred by America openly showing the world that all the ideals she claimed to be a defender of was just smoke. It was just promo smoke. And I've always been saying it. My oldest prophecies involving this time of a separation of political ideology between the government and the people always used to be punctuated by the statement that when we get into times of difficulty, we will see who people really are. I said, America, when the government uncovers her face and she becomes lawless, I said the people will become similarly lawless. The people will not be able to tolerate that this is how it's going to end, that they have a whole Second Amendment and the government thinks it's just going to roll tanks on their backs, rolling them down like it's another Tiananmen Square. So peaceful assembly, the right to associate, the right of association, the right to even be present on public property. How do you pay your taxes? And then somebody constantly in the videos, you keep seeing the ICE agents saying, back up all the way up to that tree. And the person is like, are you sure that you're not the illegal alien? Because do you not know the laws? This is a public sidewalk. Not only do I have the right to stand on any piece of the sidewalk that I want, I have the right to film. It's out in the open. I can make a whole National Geographic documentary out here if I want. Of course, it's always a brave white person. But you know what? Laws are laws. And the ICE agent is enraged because they don't want any documenting of the illegal things that they are doing. They don't even trust the so-called mask they're hiding behind. They're worried that there'll be some Siri in the future that will be able to pick up their bill and say, oh, no, this is Peter Parkinson from 2 and 222 Cherry Lane. This is how he looks. This is his body. We've scanned him and we see the mole above the mask. That's definitely him. They want to operate literally as an illegal force. And it is blowing my mind that the people in this nation, a large chunk of them, support this. If you support the breaking down of the legal infrastructure, you can't get it back when it begins to hurt you. You can't say break it down for that side, but now when it comes to me, don't use it on me. So I saw that just for being at the protest, they would pick you up. If you took the risk to go and share your conscience by being a part of a protest or any public organizing, I saw in these dreams that you could be arrested and detained even though you are exercising a constitutionally protected right. The difference in what I was seeing from the normal rules is, just a moment, please. The difference I was seeing, as I explained earlier, is that instead of this street to prison pipeline where the police get you and at least there's a marked paper trail as to from the time they got you until you actually stand in front of a judge or you get booked or you get fined or whatever. As soon as they picked you up in that protest, they took you to the military and to the paramilitary. And you went to jail, but it was military jail. You went for questioning, but it was military questioning. And this was called Escalate to military, because as soon as you started acting up, soldiers would show up instead of the ordinary riot police or even the normal police. And the police were putting in at the beginning of these protests or gatherings, it was a protest, the police were putting in an appearance as crowd control because people are allowed to protest. But in about 3 of these dreams that I kept seeing over and over and over, people who were caught at these protests were taken in cars and vans by military personnel. So it was those people coming out that have that little spider thing on the helmet. It was those people. Okay, it was people who also have something that you can pull down in front of your face. I'm not sure what it is. It's like visors. It's not a visor. It's like extra eyes. It's like something that you can pull down that will have two different, maybe it's extra glasses. I don't know what it is, but it definitely comes down and it goes like this in front of your eyes. But basically, that's what was coming. The soldiers would roll up suddenly in military trucks, and they would be the ones now to enforce order at the protest. And how they enforced order was by beating the living daylights out of people. They enforced order by beating people without restraint or without care where they landed their blows. And they hauled as many people as they could catch into vans. Now, the people who were at this protest were very diverse. The rainbow crowd was there. Moms were there. Students were there. Veterans were there. But who surprised me the most was Jews. I saw Jews in that distinctive black and white jacket, white shirt, bowler hats, only the men protesting right at the front of the protest. And there was like the barrier there, okay? Like the protest barrier there. But the crowd was so worked up, the crowd was so agitated, the crowd was so mad that the barrier was being pushed forward against the police. It wasn't military forces at first, okay? It was the ordinary police. The ordinary police were behind the barriers and the people were kept back from them by the barriers. But as the crowd was raising fists, and I'm telling you, these people were so stirred up, they were so mad, picket signs and everything. The barrier started to move forward because of the sheer numbers of the crowd surging forward to the police. Till the police had to take out riot sticks, and they were the ones who started the beating the front line of people. But the line was not breaking up. The line was not breaking up, and the people were not falling back. They were not stopping the advance. Protesters had their fists raised. Even the Jewish men in the front were so angry. Mouths open, fists raised across, and many flags flying in the crowd, including the rainbow flag. The crowd was not deterred by the beating that they were taking. They were not deterred by the blows. And they were shouting and screaming at the policemen. Just a moment, please. So they're pushing through. They're screaming. There's a lot of agitation. And then there's this voice at the back of the crowd that keeps shouting, parkour, parkour, in all the dreams. Every time I have the dream, I'm sorry, my throat itches very much. And I just can't keep stopping. And that part of it, I didn't really understand. But when I woke up, because I've seen this thing, but it just seems to be an acrobatic sport where people jump from one obstacle to another, and they do acrobatics, and they flip, and they jump, and they don't use any kind of equipment, you know? So when I woke up, I didn't understand that part. But then God explained to me, especially when I Googled the word, I can just... Let me read out the definition that I just pulled up for you now. Parkour, Parkour, the activity or sport of moving rapidly through an area, typically in an urban environment, negotiating obstacles by running, jumping, and climbing. Why do they call it parkour? The word parkour is a modified form of the French word parcours, meaning the path or the way through. And so they say that it was created or popularized by someone called David Bell and the Yamakasi group. And what they initially created it for was like a kind of military obstacle course. They adapted it from military obstacle course training. And then the word was later changed to parkour with a K, to create a more dynamic name for the discipline. So you hear that this word parkour means the path or the way through. The path or the way through. And that is what somebody just kept shouting from the back of the crowd. And I remember thinking, why is that person at the back? But constantly yelling out the name of this sport. Because I've seen people do it on TikTok. So I was thinking, what does this have to do with anything? But the person was basically saying, push through, break through the obstacle, break through that obstacle that the police are presenting you with. Push through. And that's exactly what the crowd was doing, actually. They were very agitated and very upset, trying to break through the police line. So the dreams that I was having upset American citizens, because undocumented will not go and join those protests. At least I don't think so. Then I slept again. And this is what the Lord said to me. American citizens will be taken to black sites. Black sites, he said. People will be disappeared to black sites. Citizens will go missing with no accounting for them, no confession of who took them, no chain of command, and no paper trail. Nothing will be said of them, no matter how much pressure is applied, because the government is committed to showing the people of America who's in charge. Until the people know it and fall back, the government will press forward with their agenda until the people admit defeat and let the government do what they want to do. They are announcing their plan, and they do not want to be hindered in it. But the people of America will not rest until there is civil war. It will be escalated and conflict beyond. It will be an escalated conflict beyond what has been seen in this nation by non-combat veterans, in that the normal American has never seen war. But now it will be an escalated military conflict spilling out into the streets. Communities fighting back is only the start of it. It will get more violent and more desperate of a struggle than this. The last thing God said to me is, the CIA is working with the ICE forces to detain and interrogate people. The CIA is involved with the illegal arrests, and the American government is doing covert ops on Americans behind the scenes. You are on the verge of a war, a literal insurgency. Americans will pick up arms to fight back, and then you will see more than you have ever seen before taking place literally in the streets. It will be right in the streets outside. The people will be fighting right in the streets outside. And that is just how he left it. This part about the CIA being involved with ICE to detain and interrogate people, this is the part that I said that the Lord was speaking to me. And that is why I was so heavy-hearted and pensive when I began this video, because it's one thing for y'all to be telling you for years, war will come, war will come, war is coming, war will come. And I've described the war, I've prophesied the war, and then he's saying the war will be right outside. The communities that we see fighting back, that some people come here in my comments and talk about, well, why are they impeding the ICE agents? They're not impeding the ICE agents, you second grader. They're actually standing up for something that's even bigger than how the immigrants are being treated. They're standing up for the constitutional rights that they were born with. They're standing up for their right to exist as a free people. That is what they're standing up for. Are they going to be successful in it? No. Because you can't go into a judgment period where you're punished with a civil war, you're punished with a rogue government, you're eventually punished with foreign invaders coming here to rule you and take the entire country for their spoil. You can't be successful in the fight back. This does not change the fact that people are going to fight back. And this is something that a lot of viewers have never understood. Oh, but if you're prophesying there's going to be a civil war and then we're going to be beaten, then what should we do? What do you think is going to happen? If someone says that glass is going to fall at exactly 4:30 p.m. and shatter, then you say, no, it's not. And the person says, that's okay. And then at 4:30, we suddenly hear a crash. Then what? The person has told you what will be. You can even go over there and remove the glass. Guaranteed, when you remove the glass, someone else is going to walk in at 4:29. drinking something out of a glass and say, wow, that's refreshing, and put that empty glass down in exactly the spot that you thought you made empty, and the glass will fall and shatter 30 seconds after they put it down, therefore fulfilling the prophecy of a 4:30 crash. That already happened to America last November because they thought that they were smarter than God. And then somebody put a glass there, and the glass continued the prophecies exactly as given since 2019. These are 2015 prophecies, 2016 prophecies. I've been keeping these prophecies for over 10 years. So the fact that I started bringing them out in 2019 was because the Lord's instruction was like, start building them now. And look at how long it's taken to build. And look at how much time the nation has been given. People will absolutely go out and fight for their constitutional rights. There's absolutely nothing that anyone can do to stop it. It's a natural reaction. However, the natural reaction and the natural flow of things does not constrain me from saying that the civil disobedience of America is set by God. People will civilly disobey. People will protest. People will fight back, and it will end up in an all-out war, because Yah has prophesied that madness is coming here. This war is not just going to be, oh, it's a war about we're defending this and we're defending that and we're standing up for this. No, it's not just going to be about that. It's going to be about madness that will descend on the people in the country. It's going to be a murderous madness. It's going to be an urgent madness. It's going to be a very evil madness. And yes, it's going to be a highly racially motivated madness. But that is because you cannot have power struggles in diverse nations without race coming into it. Only an infant would think that, no, I don't see color. That's a lie. Even your baby sees color. That's one of the first things you teach them. This is brown, this is green, this is purple, this is blue. So why grow up and become a liar? Because it's comfortable. And so now, to just shed a little light for people who might be like me and not really understand the gravity of what God is saying. I know that the military people already know the gravity of what I'm saying, but to the ordinary citizen, if all you know about certain things are from movies or even to someone else outside the country, you might not actually know the gravity of what God is saying here. It is a very scary thing for the Lord to say this thing called a black site. And the reason for it is because, you're watching these movies of Desert Storm. You're watching these movies of the military. Usually they're out there in the desert in a tent. I think that's where they have it. And that just goes to show that a lot of what we get from the movies is the extent of what we know. And that's because if you're never in danger of something, why would you know the correct and proper application of it? So it's necessary just to do a little overview so that there can be an in-depth understanding of what Yah is saying. A black site, let me just expand that. A black site is a secret, unacknowledged location used by a government for military and defense operations, particularly for detaining and interrogating suspected enemies or terrorists outside of normal legal oversight. These sites are used to operate covertly, often using secrecy to bypass both domestic and international laws regarding the detention and the treatment of prisoners. The term became widely known in the aftermath of the September 11, 2001 attacks, when the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, established a global network of black sites as part of its rendition, detention, and interrogation program. Key characteristics of the black site and the controversy surrounding it. One of the greatest disputed reasons for black sites is the secrecy. It says here, the black site is a secret and unacknowledged location. That means that you ask a government person 10 times out of 10, right? You have them in the press conference and then someone says, General so-and-so, is it true that the United States uses black sites against its enemies? The general will lie. A corporal will lie. A lance corporal will lie. A sergeant will lie. A lieutenant will lie. Even a private will lie. And the reason they will lie is because the policy is that you do not acknowledge that the country uses this. The policy is that you do not acknowledge that a country that always paints itself to be lawful breaks the law and actually has established places where it can break the law in leisure. And so when asked, does a black site exist? The U.S. government, all branches of it, will lie. They will say something like, I can't comment on that at this time. Or they will try to use mockery. Remember, I've always shared here with you to make you more free as you witness to other people, as you share the videos with other people, just as you share faith, and they try to troll you and mock you. That mockery is a very cheap thing, but Americans love it. You're talking sense, and they will say, you don't really believe that, do you? And they will raise their voice and they will try to mock you into silence, because this is a small brain at work. Whenever a small brain cannot formulate an argument against the facts that are being articulated, mockery is the go-to, because it is understood in us since childhood that nobody likes being laughed at. And a lot of us don't work on that area of our personality whereby we're able to handle mockery, we're able to handle laughter. Like, okay, you're laughing, but you're going to stop laughing at some point, and you're going to meet me with the same face waiting for you to actually say something. Because the thing is, I didn't laugh at you with a question. I put a premise out. I said a certain amount of things. And so now after your laughter, you will still find my question or my statement waiting for you. And I'm waiting for you to answer it like an adult, because if not, I didn't know that I was conversing with Bozo the clown. But for most people, in the face of very loud laughter or snickering, they will melt. And so the government will try to mock people who ask about black sites, or they will outright deny that it exists, or they will try to make it like it's a covert area, a secret thing, like we can't comment on that for matters of national security. But even the Google AI knows that America created it, because they said that this term came into usage after September 11, and that it's an American thing, and that America set up these unpoliced, undisclosed locations nationally inside the country and internationally as part of a program called Rendition, Detention, and Interrogation. We know what detention is. People always ask, am I being detained? That means that you are not free to go. Interrogation, we know. It's when authority figures come and they will ask you questions in such a way that they want to get answers to their questions. Rendition, though, is illegal. It breaks a lot of laws. The first thing it goes against is the writ of habeas corpus, that you have to be able to produce the body. There's a lot of Iraqi, there's a lot of Afghanistani, there's a lot of Syrian, there's a lot of every place that America has gone to do war, to attack the people, to rob the people, and to accuse the people of being terrorists when they're actually the terrorists under false flagging, lying on the people so that they can take what the people have outside. There's a lot of people that have been disappeared. And when you are disappeared, we will never know who habeas your corpus. We will never know where the body is, because you vanish from this world. Now, the problem is that Americans have known, whether consciously or subconsciously, directly or indirectly, that their government does this. But just like I said, you'll see tanks on the street and you will be shocked that the government can bring tanks on the street for you. God is saying that now the CIA, who, again, it says the CIA was running the rendition, detention, and interrogation program. The CIA is going to bring those things home. The CIA is going to bring those things home. And you have to know, Americans, because you think the CIA is such a free mover, such a maverick. The CIA was very, very likely taught the more diabolical aspects of what they know by Mossad in Israel, because there's just too many parallels to ignore. This covering of the face, that is what they do. The raping of men to break them. Something that I told you years ago, that American military rapes the men. They rape the men as a way to humble them, especially those men in Guantanamo Bay. Why? Because Guantanamo Bay is the biggest and most obvious black site in America. If we don't know where any of the others are, that one is. Because what goes on there, nobody ever reports on it. The people that are there don't have to answer to anyone. They constantly claim national security because they're on the border with Cuba, and therefore they don't have to answer to anything. It's a black hole. Only the people who work there know what's going on there. But Jesus knows what's going on there. And he told me that they assault men in that place. They torment them in that place. They rape them in that place. They humiliate them in that place. They do a lot of things that have never been accounted for. And that is why Yah said, when Russia comes here, that Russia will take Americans to their version of Guantanamo Bay. The Russians apparently have a Guantanamo Bay. And Yah said, there they will question you relentlessly. So some prisoners that Israel was holding, here another parallel. Some prisoners, some Palestinians that Israel was holding came out. These were teenage boys, right? They came out and they were asking them. I have that video. They were asking them, what happened to you? And these boys were saying a lot of things. But you know, one thing that got me from my 2019 prophecy, they said they play loud rock music for 1 week until your brains are melting. Master's Voice people, do you remember? In the prophecy, it's called Redacted Information Revealed, where I was listing all the wicked things that God was telling me that this government does that I'd never heard in my life. It's either a 2019 or 2020 prophecy. One of them, he said, is constantly throwing water on people. I said that I saw them putting people in a room that looks like a bathroom. And the reason that you are in that room that looks like a bathroom is because the whole room is tiled. And therefore, water will be thrown on you constantly, usually when you're sleeping. The children in Palestine confirmed that the Israeli forces will constantly open the door and throw freezing water on them at 2 a.m. in the morning and then leave them in the room with no way to dry off. So you're just... They also said something that I wrote years ago that I saw. They will play Nirvana, Black Sabbath, at decibels whereby the boy says that your ears can bleed. And he said they played it for a week. I wrote that 5 years ago. He said that they will keep the brightest fluorescent lights on incessantly until you can't tell the difference between day and night. I wrote that 5 years ago. That they will keep the lights on until you basically... And all of this is psychological torture. I've seen prisoners coming out, and a lot of people are making videos. God bless their souls, because at least they're trying to take some form of responsibility. I've seen a lot of people making comparison videos between Israeli prisoner. The Israeli prisoner comes out. He's happy. He's healthy. He's hugging his family. He's got fat and life in his cheeks. I've seen skulls come out. You know when a human skull just has the layer of skin on top of it? Yes. I've seen men who are skulls come out. I've seen men where they say, he has lost his power of speech. This prisoner is no longer verbal. I've seen one come out with his eyes constantly in the full open position. He anytime anyone talks to him, he's like, yes. And he literally has to turn his whole body, and he's gone. He's completely ruined as a man. And people are making comparison videos to show, look, this is a prisoner that Hamas kept for 6 months. Look at him coming out. And then this is a similar prisoner that Israel kept for 6 months. So a lot of the things that America does and claims plausible deniability on, and citizens in the country just, well, it's collateral damage, you got to do what you got to do to make them talk. Now, again, you are hearing a prophecy from years back, 2020, that what? The government will use its tactics on you. The government will water shock you. The government will waterboard you. I didn't say they will do it to Jose, that you keep asking, why didn't he do it the right way? We've gone past that. Because why would you not understand that the president promising to go after these people was simply what we call the opening premise. It's the way you open a conversation. Would you like to have dinner? That's giving you the option to say yes or no. The problem is that wickedness was offered to you as Americans, and you have shown the world that you are wicked by co-signing it and by voting for it, because you literally thought that wickedness could be brought out of its hiding place and leashed. That is how the harlot, Mystery Babylon, thinks. She thinks she can put her hand in with the devil and shake and then be the one to take her hand out of the grip when she wants to. But there's nothing like that. And so these black sites are secret, unacknowledged, meaning that nobody knows if they exist or not, because there's been no formal acknowledgement. Yes, we, the government, do that in locations that nobody knows where they are. And the government claims that it's for military and defense, places where they can take suspects, detain the suspects indefinitely. And you can be detained indefinitely because when you're not charged with anything, you've never heard an ICE agent articulate a charge in their life. They don't even know how to say that you're being arrested on reasonable suspicion of nothing, because when they're racially profiling you and rolling up on you, Jermaine, when they're rolling up on you, Keisha, then what? What is your crime when you're standing and they're about to arrest you on the racist premise that you fit the description because you're black? Because you know that eventually all the Hispanic people are going to disappear, right? There's only going to be the legal ones. All the illegal ones will be done. And I told you that the dog will keep biting because you told it to bite. And I said that now we'll be left just here, the biteables. And now Yah has given me this dream saying that people will be taken to highly classified. The internet says that the facility's very existence and locations are highly classified and kept from the public. Detainees are often moved via unmarked private planes. So this is a process known as extraordinary rendition, because they make movies about it. They make movies about flying you around in the air for 3 hours, 6 men gut punching you, stomping on your privates, the way those men killed that black man a few months ago. They stomped him and punched him in his privates. Why won't a man succumb to the shock and the trauma of that? What kind of death like that is fitting for anyone? And then when a person sits and says, at what point does the argument, yes, but he shouldn't have resisted? He was restrained. He was restrained. He was already strapped to a bed. They were punching and kicking him whilst restrained. They often punch black people in their face after cuffing them. So at what point are we going to leave these arguments and simply begin to examine the hearts that continue saying, yes, but the officer wouldn't have? At what point will you understand that the officer absolutely would have? I can tell you what that point is. It's when the officer does it to your 19-year-old son. When the officer gives you a stale bun for the first time in your life, you will never again say, let's see the beginning of the tape. You will never say that, because you will be too busy saying, this is Connor. This is the last picture. Connor was at a protest and he had just taken this selfie with his bestie before they got there, and she managed to escape, but they got him, and it's been a year. And now you don't know that Connor is in a black site. You don't know who has stomped on your grandbabies because they put a military boot on his male reproductive organ with force. All of a sudden, you will understand that the entire nation is a bad bakery, but you're understanding now because you have skin in the game. And this is what God has been saying all along. That a nation that practices injustice in different ways, all its people in the country, I have endeavored to say, guilty in different ways, guilty of different sins in different ways in the same country, now about to get one punishment. For the Black Americans and the Latin Americans crying. Why? Because the fingers of the Constitution are about to be broken. Women also crying because the Handmaid's Tale is coming. When I bring you a brief snapshot of the type of men who are rising to prominence and what they say about women in public, women who speak, women who think, women in business, women in politics, you will be appalled. But you shouldn't be appalled. You should be terrified, because under the laws that we are going into, these people that some are calling Project Esther, I haven't had time to look into it, but these are the architects of a new world in which a woman and a child will be the same. Because they always say of children, children should be seen and not heard. Women will go below children because women should not be seen or heard. These are the male voices that are rising now because America is in decline. The worst that was always hidden under this flag that I used to prophesy, that God said to me, strip off the flag, Celestial, and show the world what lies beneath the U.S. flag. Strip off that flag and expose to the whole world the sins that the flag covers. So then the flag is a symbol of greatness. Everybody loves it. It's a symbol of allegiance. It's a symbol of greatness. But then God is saying to him, every time you see the U.S. flag, all you see is a long list of sins that are peculiar to the American demographic. Across the board, nobody is guiltless. Everyone performing the sins in their own heart as the pressure is getting turned up. At a black site, interrogators use what the U.S. government calls enhanced interrogation techniques. This is pulling your fingers off with a plier. Most definitely. It is playing rock music for a week straight until you begin to rock, because you can't sleep. And without sleep for 1 week, you become insane. You become insane. You begin to see double, and you begin to hear like you're underwater. These methods, waterboarding, sleep deprivation, physical abuse, have been widely condemned as torture and a violation of international human rights law. They know that. America knows that. That's why the facilities are kept highly confidential. That's why nobody knows the location. The only people who know the location are the people who are going there to do the stomping of the privates, and the generals who say, make him talk by any means, corporal. Then a man is applying. I saw that they apply electric shocks to you. That is one of the things I saw. I also saw that in these places, let's say they've tortured you for a year and you haven't broken. You know why you haven't broken? Because you don't have any secrets, because you're not a spy. You're not any of the things America accuses you of being. They have you there. I'm not talking about citizens. I'm talking about the people they've done this to for, I don't know, since September 11th, this would be 24 years that this has been going on in the United States. So they've had a man in there and they've been torturing him, doing all kinds of things to him One of the things that I saw in redacted information revealed is that they will cut off a man's privates. That's one of the ways that they will cut it off, and then they will mark the time from the time they cut it off until he stops breathing. It's called exsanguination. Exsanguination, which it's a fancy word for to bleed out to death. Exsanguination basically means you will chop off somebody's arm or chop off somebody's leg at the knee. And if you chop off an arm or a leg at the knee, it's not fatal. Even if you castrate someone, it's not fatal. What is fatal is to inflict a mortal wound like that and not give aid. Without rendering medical aid, the chopping off of a large limb like the arm that is full of arteries, chopping off the leg, or chopping off the male appendage, the person will bleed to death because there's no keeping of the lifeblood inside the body. I saw that. In addition to throwing water on people, in addition to electric shocking people, in addition to loud music, in addition to keeping the lights on for an unstoppable amount of time, in addition to no food, in addition to no water. These young men from Palestine were saying that sometimes they didn't get any food at all. Sometimes they got one tiny meal a day. So these things are not hearsay. These things are not hearsay. These are actually the things that I've been saying for all this time that I've been here. That when you live in a nation that is under judgment and the nation is burdened by its sins, if you are so unwise as to think that you get a free pass with God by saying, but I never did that, that means you never read a Bible one day in your life. One day in your life. Because there's Daniel in the Bible proving that the Bible is a waste of time to you. Because Daniel was a young boy who went into captivity, and he was captured in the captivity of an Israel that was getting punished for the sins of the people who were older than him. He was a child. He was a child. But when the captivity caught him, he paid for it his whole life by not having an Israelite life. Because the captivity was 70 years separated from the nation. 70 years. This is how you know that Nehemiah was younger than Daniel. Because Daniel was an old man by the time the 70 years were completed. But people like Ezra, people like Nehemiah were young enough to come back and begin the rebuilding process after the 70 years were completed at Babylon. And this is what Jeremiah told them. Jeremiah told them 70 years are determined at Babylon. So make sure that you find suitable young men in the captivity community. Don't marry the Babylonians there. Find suitable young men for your daughters and find suitable young women for your sons and build houses for yourself there. And why did he have to say that? Because even when they went into captivity, they were listening to false prophets. Even when they went into captivity, the false prophets were telling them, this is for a short time. We'll be back home in no time. God is going to take us back. And he had to write and tell them, you arrogant, hard-hearted, stubborn, stone-hearted people, no one is coming to save you. You are in a judgment and you're going to serve it the full 7-0. And true to form, they served it. So black sites are places of extra legal activity. Because these sites operate outside of normal legal channels, and I'm reading it in the present tense because the Google AI is trying to act as if it only happened for September 11 and then America stopped it. That is a bald-faced lie, because Jesus Christ, who is not the Google AI, is telling American citizens that you will and shall, if you go to these protests or if ICE catches you, they're planning to escalate. The title of the prophecy you're listening to is Escalate to military and paramilitary. That means that black sites are very much still existing, very much still operational, and shall not be read in the past tense by the lying Google American-owned AI. extra legal activity. Because these sites operate outside of normal legal channels, detainees will be denied their legal rights and subjected to enforced detention, in which the government refuses to acknowledge their detention or location. This is Jared. You don't accept that you took Jared. That's why Jared's parents are on the TV program appealing to anyone who has information on Jared, because the government is acting like they never heard of Jared in their life, even though they not only took Jairus' corpus, his body, put him into an unmarked van and carried him away to where nobody has seen him since. We don't know if Jared is dead or alive, or working in the underground society under the ground, or dead and melted down in the lime pits. We don't know where he is, because the government refuses to acknowledge that it took him in the first place, and then refuses to say where his location is. Why would you refuse to comment on his location if you claim you never took him, you never detained him? So, the CIA was running black sites in Eastern Europe and in other parts of the world that they're declining to name here. However, known locations, this must mean that whistleblowers got active, people got sick of the things that they saw, people started confessing no matter what was happening. Known locations that have been exposed of CIA-owned black sites were in Afghanistan, Poland, Romania, and Thailand. They take you to the Thai one, that's it for you. For sure. For sure. Legal findings. After years of investigations and reports, including a 2014 report commissioned by the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee, the European Court of Human Rights has ruled that some countries, such as Poland and Romania, were complicit in allowing the CIA to torture prisoners on their territory. Notice how the Google-run American lying AI says nothing here about the fact that in order for other people to be complicit with you in your crime, you, the criminal, has to be mentioned. There is no mention of the United States in this entire breakdown of what a black site is as being called the chief offender by the European Court of Human Rights. So they jump on Poland's back and Romania's back and said, you're guilty. We find you guilty and complicit of being an accessory to the crime with America. But then America, the criminal itself, is nowhere mentioned here in the AI, which is why I'm always telling you, when you watch TV, are you watching the TV critically? Or you just, whatever they're saying, you're just taking it into your brain because some random authority figure called a newscaster or an expert or Bloomberg or even the leader of the nation himself is standing there and saying things. Are you tightening the filter of your mind from these size holes to this, trying to get it small until the lies do not get through? That is what prayer and fasting is actually for. It's not only for spiritual problems, demonic problems. Spending time in the Word of God sharpens your brain immeasurably. It is better than going to school. Reading the Bible has some kind of spiritual impact that I cannot describe what it is. You just get better. You're reading about Joseph. You're reading about stacking up food for 7 years. Fat cows, thin cows. Trust me, it's doing something. It is doing something. Reading the Bible, that is the body and the person of Christ. He is the living word. Staring into those pages imparts wisdom. Because what if I was just to read this and say, yes, so Poland and Romania? No. Wisdom tells me that if you use the word complicit, complicit implies partners. These were helping partners. Poland, Afghanistan, Romania, Thailand were found to be places that agreed to let America have a torture spot. Okay, so I have my house. You come in with your big stompy American boots and say, yeah, we need a piece of the house there to torture this random Arab guy that we have. Okay, you're bigger than me. I agree. How are we going to go to court and we don't bring the person who showed up with the Arab guy that he wanted to torture? What are we doing at court? How do you take accessories to court and you don't take the criminal to court? This is why God is on your back, United States. Because absolutely nobody on the face of this earth, all the institutions of this world are useless in dispensing justice to the United States. And therefore, they are invalid institutions. They will jump on Kenya and take that Kenyatta man, whatever his name is. They will drag a sitting Kenyan president and sit him there like a little boy and ask him questions. Did you do human rights abuses to the Kenyan people? Did you do this? But that crusted over George Bush Jr., right? They will leave him up to now in his old age, painting his miserable paintings, and never bring him to answer for the murder of I don't know how many million Iraqi people. Barack Obama will just bomb everyone with drones. And then the International Court of Justice, no court of justice, absolutely no international body seems to know where to find Americans to ask them, these dead people in Yemen, do you have anything to say about that? The crying people in Syria, the little children that are picking up the bread from the rubble. Oh yes, the 800 fulfillion dead people in Gaza. Would you like to comment? And then we will sit here, at least some of us, and try to pretend like power dynamics don't exist. This is what we will do. We will try to gaslight portions of the population to say that there's absolutely no power dynamics in the United States. And when you talk about it, then you're not being very prophetic. It sounds personal. How can having a brain sound personal? What am I supposed to do? Should I unplug it and just come and say, and thusly, thus saith the Lord, and leave? What is the function of a prophet? The prophet is the means by which God, the just judge, shall bring about justice. That is why they're so offended and overheated when they face injustice, when they face imbalance. Because it goes against their wiring, because God is bubbling up in them, offended at the injustice. How do you jail the guy who took the ladder out of the house, out of the car, and the guy who held the ladder against the house, and then the guy who climbed in, stole the baby, came back down the ladder, and went to human traffic it? You don't mention him when you're listing the crime. The very information that we are allowed to see online smacks of the existing power dynamic in the world. I always tell you, if you're just going to read what's in front of you, then you might as well not read at all, because it's not true, and you have to think critically about it. You nail the accessory, and the criminal is nowhere named here as having faced any court. So the CIA runs the operation and is nowhere named as having had to go to court to answer for, hey, by the way, why do you have black sites? Why do you have places that you disappear people and rape them? Men, you are raping men. You are raping males in those places and taking videos and laughing at it and putting your boot on their head. Then when I come and prophesy that God says Russians will come here and put their boot on Americans' head, then my name is everywhere. My name is everywhere. Response video, do you think that? Yes. Because why? Because the punishment is with exactitude. No more, no less. Precise. So then that leaves you no choice but to kneel down and say, God, this is what I come from. As a black American, as a white American, as a whatever it is that you are. This is what I come from. This is what is literally running in my DNA. codified. And in order for me to step outside the just deserts, there's nothing for it but repentance. There's nothing for it but to petition heaven to forgive the blood we have caused. To do anything less is gaslighting. To do anything else is making excuses. So, the last lie that is here on the internet is that in 2009, President Barack Obama formally ended the CIA's detention and interrogation program and ordered the closure of all its black sites. And there it is, with a flourish, the final lie that the American-owned Google AI has pulled from all the papers that exist talking about black sites, that in 2009, the great brown hope of the United States stepped up, offended at the torture, offended at the methods of his predecessor, and shut them down. And then here we are in 2025 with God saying to American citizens that you will go to black sites. Citizens will go missing with nothing to account for them. No confession of who took them. So this is verbatim, the description of what happens to someone who is detained at a black site. There'll be no accounting for where you are. No eyewitnesses to who took you. No idea where you're located. No confession of who took you. That means we cannot comment at this time of who took Mary Brown. We cannot comment on that because you're in a black site. The one that Obama closed in 2009, probably with some big speech. If we go and look in the Wayback Machine, we'll find him. And we are ashamed of this dark time in the nation's history. You know that's contrived speech, right? You do know that nobody talks like that. It's what we call an affectation. It's just to fool children. Black sites are open for business in 2025. No chain of command, no paper trail. Nothing will be said of them, no matter the pressure. And why? Because God says that the government is about to display now what its agenda is. And what is the agenda? He says that the agenda is to show America who's in charge. So that means that right now, this portion of the beast government has its hand under its chin, with already the bottom part of the face showing, because the mask, I would actually say we're up to the eyes, because the mask that I already said years ago, the American government will take its mask off. The mask is off now. It's just up by the hairline, about to come off. No chain of command basically means that there is no sign of you being arrested or harassed on the street. There's not a single video. They will come to everybody, break the phones or take the phones away. No chain of command means that all those spots I named to you in the beginning and said, there's people filming on the street. When you get loud, they start to film. Why? To protect your life, especially if you're a minority. It's essential never to get abducted in silence. Let at least 4 or 5 people see you. Even if you never come back, your mom will know that she didn't dream you, that you do exist, that there's video trending somewhere, that people saw you. You get into the cop car. It has video. The body cam has video. Now Yah is saying all of that will go away. You get to the station. They take your statement. They book you. You get a booking photo. They open a file for you. It's the proof that they had your corpus. That means when it's time to bail you out, they need to produce your body living and breathing. Or if it's time to go to court, they need to produce your body out of the prison system. But now with the black site, God says, there's nothing. There's no chain of command. Nobody's willing to confess that they have you. Nobody's willing to even acknowledge that they ever saw you. And the government's going to start operating like this, because now they said they want to move forward with the agenda, and God says they want the people to admit defeat and to allow the government to do what they want to do. They're announcing their plan and they don't want to be hindered in it, but the people of America will not rest until there's civil war. I told you that the Sons of Freedom are here. All the Sons of Freedom could be brought to watch this video. They will watch it and they will think that these are just the words of a cowardly Democrat woman, which only one of those things is true. I'm a woman. They will think she doesn't know what she's talking about. They will be polishing their guns and going, that little gal, that gal doesn't know what she's talking about. They're going to fight no matter what. I'm not the one to tell them to fight or don't fight. I'm telling you what Yah says they will do. They will fight. And the more they fight, the more repressive, the more bloody. I found my old prophecy. Old thing. And in there, I'm just saying patiently that God has said to me that as the beast system rises, it will be like a tree growing, but its roots will be watered by blood. This is a peculiar tree. It doesn't grow by our tears. It doesn't grow by the sweat of resistance. This tree will rise to its full height, watered by the blood of the people who will try to fight for this country. That's already judged. That's already doomed. And so God says that the conflict that we're seeing now, people pushing back in the streets, people doing this, people doing that, he says that it's going to escalate to a point that non-combat veterans, this means all the people in America who have never actually gone to active duty, never actually served in a war, so you've never seen mortar shells, you've never heard those booms. Okay, when the shells are landing, you've never heard the booms. When the bombs are landing, you've never felt that heat that comes out of the sky when those bombs are cooking the air above you, and that air is so hot and frying off your eyebrows and things like that, blowing tons of people to death. You've never seen any of that kind of action. God says it will go to a place where the non-combat veterans, that's the normal American, has never seen before military conflict spilling out into the streets as communities fight back. Communities fighting back is only the start of it, he says. It will get more violent and more desperate. Of a struggle than this, you are on the verge of war, a literal insurgency. CIA working with ICE forces to detain and interrogate people. CIA involved right now. He says the CIA is already involved in working with the government to do covert ops on people. That is one thing that I did not look up. What is a covert operation or covert action is a secret government or intelligence activity that is planned to be hidden from public knowledge, and in some cases designed so the sponsoring organization can plausibly deny involvement. These operations can be carried out by intelligence agencies like the CIA, MI5, police forces, and their aim is to influence political, military, or economic conditions in another country without an overt use of force. Well, that makes sense because the president has already declared that there's an enemy within. So then they will see the people as, like a foreign nation that they have to stomp out, because it's been said by the president, it's been said by Stephen Miller. And look here, another name for it is Black Ops. A subset of all covert operations. Black Ops are those that are never able to be traced back to the organization carrying them out. So yeah, that sounds CIA to me. The goal is to achieve a specific outcome, such as undermining an unfriendly government. Aren't we being undermined? Salaries not paid, but money going to Argentina. Influencing public opinion, gathering intelligence without triggering overt conflicts. So covert ops basically are scams that you run on other countries to gather intelligence or to get an edge over them somehow. And yet, When asked, there will be no sign that you were there, right? Because you're doing it secretly. So God says that you are on the verge of a war, a literal insurgency. Americans will pick up arms to fight back, and then you will see more than you have ever seen before taking place literally in the streets. His last sentence, it will be right in the streets outside. The people will be fighting right in the streets outside. And so, you have heard the word of the Lord. Escalate to military and paramilitary, October the 14th, 2025. You've heard God showing scenes of the future that we're going to tumble into right now, whereby ICE is increasingly being given powers as a paramilitary force. Who knew that that was the right term for them, right? And yet people are talking about they're just doing their jobs with absolutely no knowledge of what they're talking about. Because if you're an illegal force, then what job are you doing? Honestly, people, the schools are open and the costs are reasonably low. So there's no excuse for the manner in which so many people think in this nation. So if basically ICE catches you and they just begin to attribute their usual lies to you, can you imagine that one of the things Yah is talking about here is calling you a loiterer with malicious intent? And I've been seeing them do it to people. When people are recording them, then they say the person is loitering. And then people have to let them know it's a public street. There's thousands of us here on the street. Are you going to arrest everyone who's standing on the street and call them a loiterer? It's a public street. We're not loitering. And they're doing this, like I said, to stop accountability. So if you're questioning them, or if they say that you're loitering with intent, if you're filming to get a record of what they're doing, if you're sitting in your car with the engine off, how many times have you gone off shift, gone to your car that is the only place you get to spend a few minutes before you go home to the mayhem of your house, your wife and kids, or your husband and kids? How many times have you just left and sat in the car and even napped in the car for an hour? Can you imagine those things that they use to shatter the window being the reason that you wake up, and then they arrest you and they tell you, oh, we're arresting you on suspicion of sitting in your car with the engine off, not driving? What kind of society is that? Or if you get mad at how you're being handled, if you basically can't control your temper in any situation, Yah says, remember, involving one person, that means if you're on your own, you can still get arrested. If you're in a group, all of you can be arrested. And God says that the plan is basically to snatch, nab, grab, and then immediately shuttle you into this pipeline that can make you go missing. And this has already happened to a lot of the foreign people that they're picking up. The amnesty groups can't find them. Their families can't find them. The phones are going to voicemail. ICE will not acknowledge that it has these people. You see the videos of other people crying and saying, since they took my father, it's been 2 months. It's been 6 months. Please remember that what is happening is an escalation. People have been going missing since January. Some people's tears have been since January. It is now October of 2025, the year that the wheels fall off. To claim that you are a Christian and to lack the empathy and compassion that Jesus himself would have, the Jesus that is the owner of the Bible, that says how you are supposed to deal with the widow, the orphan, the foreigner, the alien, and the sojourner in your midst. You miss all that. And then you think that you will just get on an airplane and fly to Italy when the war starts. You don't know this God. You don't know him. You will fly to that Italy. You will fly to that UK. You will fly to that Germany. You will fly to that France. And in times to come, Vladimir Putin will own that whole Europe. You miss him here, you're going to catch him on the other side. You can never be smarter than God. He will catch you in your wickedness. That man will own the whole of Europe. The whole of it. He will do another Rise of Hitler Part 2, but with wings. Where Hitler failed, he will be successful. He will own that whole piece of real estate. You will be American in that place. I am Celestial, and this is the Master's Voice. The Master's Voice is an audio-visual platform that you can find on multiple streaming places. Let's just call it that. I'm on SoundCloud. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Listen Notes. I'm on, I don't know if I'm on Audible. Maybe I should go there, but I don't know how it works. I'm on Amazon Music and YouTube Music, and I have alternate viewing channels on BitChute, Rumble, Brighteon, Odyssey, and Telegram. And follow me on social media because I'm putting up interesting clips in my story of a lot of things. The 9/11, the great 6 million killed in Germany. As I'm finding very interesting clips, I am putting them up in my story. Sometimes I have up to 10 clips there, and people are watching 2,000, 3,000. So join my Instagram, join my Facebook, join my TikTok. And the truth will be spoken here without restraint. Without restraint. When I finish these videos, I go and I know that God is going to give me feedback. He's going to give me virtue. He's going to refresh me, and then probably give me a rock that is even heavier than the one I just dropped in the pond. And it's going to be ripples all the way from here on out. It's going to be ripples from now. In fact, from the time I started, the ripples are just getting bigger and bigger. As we are going into the fulfillment of these things, steward your time well. Use the word of God. If you don't know how to pray, get a prayer book. Don't have any of mine here, but usually they've been mentioned. There's a book called Prayers That Bring Healing. If you're dealing with sickness in your body, that book is very good. It's by Apostle John Eckhart. There's Prayers That Rout Demons. All of you who are struggling with addiction, you're struggling with porn, you're struggling with creatures choking you in the night, demonic activity, marine powers, that book is excellent. It's also by Apostle John Eckhart. There's a pastor from Australia online who has excellent prayers for almost every problem in life. His name is Robert Clancy. Pastor Robert is on YouTube, so you can go to his YouTube. And I'm only speaking of people who is not going to fill you with the demonic breadcrumbs that you've been picking up from all the big channels, which is where I found you when I came online, right? Eating in every pig trough and not dealing with your personal problems as if we can be filled with personal problems and then still make heaven. That's not it. So take the wire brush and get scrubbing, because what you will need in a time of meltdown of a country this big, you will need a sterling faith. Sterling, as in God bites it. It's top quality silver. It's top quality gold. No leaven. And that means that there's work involved. So God bless you. And until I see you again, goodbye.